go. I'm on.
Hi, everyone. Rob Walker here.
Hi, Rob. We got you.
Thank you.
Jesse?
Yes.
Do you still think I need to do that whole intro? I mean, I know we had 255, but they're only 35 right now.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a quorum yet? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 26, 23. No, we don't.
Can you hear me? It's Gwen.
Hi, Gwen.
Hi. For some reason, my picture didn't come up. So anyway, I'm here, and I'll have to try and get it so that it recognizes me.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Almost there. All right, I count a quorum. Jesse, you ready? Are we live?
We are live and recording.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Manhattan Community Board for full board meeting for the summer. In the summer, we combine our July and August meetings into one meeting because for the most part, everyone takes August off. My name is Lowell Kern. I'm the chair of Manhattan Community Board 4. As per Governor's Executive Order 202.1, this meeting is being run remotely. It is being recorded and transcribed. A recording of the meeting will be posted on the board's YouTube page. That satisfies the public open meetings law. Here's how tonight works. Everyone stays muted the entire time. We have two groups of people here. We have panelists and we have attendees. The panelists are the board members. The attendees are members of the public. Members of the public will be recognized to speak during the public session by our first vice chair, Jesse LeFrancois. Our district manager, Jesse Bodine, will then promote you and you'll become a panelist for all of your 2 minutes. You get to say your 2 minutes piece and then you go back to being an attendee. The agenda tonight, we have our public session, as I mentioned. Actually, we have a public hearing first on a draft EIS statement on the new Empire Station complex, which you'll hear more about shortly. We do our public session. We hear reports from our local electeds and the borough president, including our borough president, a district manager report. You get my report, and then we go into our business session and we discuss the letters that have been voted on by the committees for this month. When Jeffrey starts the public session, we'll talk about the speakers list. If you have not signed up in advance, you can raise your hand using the blue button on your screen, and or if you're on the phone, I think it's *9, and you'll be added to the end of the list for the public session. Any questions relating to software or processes only, please use the chat function. Questions, we are not monitoring the Q&A function. That would be only for presentations. So if you have problems, please use the chat function. I think that covers all of the ground rules. We will be bundling all of our items when we vote into a roll call vote, basically looking for everyone to signal which letters they agree with or disagree with. And that's our process. So we're going to start with a presentation, a public hearing. This is a scoping hearing on a draft environmental impact statement on the Empire Station Complex. We had four or five, Jeffrey, members of the board testify yesterday. 5 members of the board testify yesterday at a public hearing on this. Jeffrey, as our first vice chair, was there. We were also represented by the Chelsea Land Use Committee, Paul Devlin and Betty McIntosh, and the Transportation Committee, Christine Berthet and Dale Corvino. I would like to let everyone know that I got some really nice emails from the chair of CB5, Vicky Barbaro, complimenting all of the CB4 speakers. But with that, who am I giving this to? Jeffrey, are you taking this?
No, can I?
Paul is taking it. Paul is taking it. I see him raising his hand. Paul, would you please take over our public hearing now?
Paul, can you give me 1 second for the for board members? Thank you. For board members, you need to make sure you rename yourself. If it just says CB4 member, please scroll over your tile or your name under the participants and rename yourself with your full name. Thank you.
Dale, that's you.
There's a couple more. But
yep, I see him.
Thank you.
Okay, we ready?
All yours, Mr. Devlin.
Thank you. So as Lowell pointed out, the New York State Urban Development Corporation, also known as Empire State Development or ESD, is proposing a transit-oriented development surrounding Penn Station through a general project plan or GPP, which supersedes the city's ULURP and overrides current zoning. We're at the stage in the process where ESD is determining the scope of study for the Environmental Impact Study or EIS. Their draft scope was presented to us on July 1st, and they are seeking input on what should be studied and then included in the EIS. Comments on that draft scope are due by August 20th. So this is our community board full hearing on this project. And to repeat, as Lowell's already pointed out, the governor's executive order, we're holding this public hearing remotely, and it's being recorded and transcribed. So if there's anyone who wishes to speak on this draft scope, please use the raise hand feature so that you can be called on. We had requested that people submit their names by noon today, and we did not receive any requests to speak at tonight's hearing. So we will call on the public now. I see that Assemblymember Dick Godfrey's hand is raised. I don't know if he wishes to speak on this issue or is wishing to speak on something else. But Jesse, if we could pull in.
Go ahead, Dick.
I'm sorry. No, I had my hand raised to do an elected official comment whenever you're ready for that.
We will get to you as soon as we get through this.
Okay.
I wanted to do this one first because I didn't know if we had CB5 members joining us who were interested in one item. But I do see you there, Dick. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, so I see no hands raised. This is an issue, item 22 on the rest of the agenda for the letter that was compiled, and I will be moderating that discussion. So not seeing any further requests for comment, I'm going to call this hearing to a close. And do I need to make a motion to close the hearing?
Nope. You just tell me you want to close it, and we're closed. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you all very much.
All right. We're going to go into our public session now. As we've been doing on these Zoom meetings, we have typically allowed our elected officials to jump the line and speak ahead of the public. But I think it's better policy to let the public speak and let the elected officials hear what they have to say. So with your indulgence, Mr. Gottfried, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. LeFrancois. Jeffrey, public session, please.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jeffrey LeFrancois. I'm the first Vice Chair of Manhattan Community Board 4. This evening, I'll be running our public session as we do each meeting. Those that have signed up in advance, I have your names. I'm going to call 3 folks at a time, so that way Janine and Jesse can bring you over from the attendees section. I'll have a timer going. I'll give you a brief warning, and then when your 2 minutes is up, we'll be transferring over to the next speaker. So with that, first speaker, Jacob Morris, followed by Caitlin Moody, and then George Henderson. Jacob Morris.
Jeffrey, would you please give our standard admonition about repeating what the person in front of you had said?
Thank you. Yes, I was going to call those names so we could bring them over and then do 2 more points. We received in advance of this evening's meetings a number of letters of opposition and support to a particular liquor license on the agenda of a place called The Spot. That will be talked about in detail during the business section of the meeting by the co-chairs of the BLP committee. And we also received a number of letters around concerns about the homeless issues we're facing in largely in Hell's Kitchen, but in the district as a whole. And one of the things, to Lowell's point, is if somebody says something before you, your time at the microphone, we strongly encourage not repeating everything the person said before you, but just echoing their sentiments and giving back your time. So with that, I'm going to, let's see, is our first speaker?
So far, they are not, the first 2 speakers are not here. The first 3 speakers are not here unless they have signed in a different name.
Got it. So with that, we'll call Amir Kabd.
All right, we have Amir.
Okay, perfect. From the New York Public Library. I probably pronounced their name incorrectly. After that is Donna Mae DePola, and then Lisa Wager.
Amir, you should be able to unmute yourself at this point.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Go for it. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everybody. My name is Amir Kotb. I am a government and community affairs staff member at the New York Public Library. I want to check in with you all with some updates on some new things going on with the library. I'm going to get right to it because I only have 2 minutes. So the first one is that we have reopened as of Monday, July 13th. We've reopened at just 8 branches across our 3 boroughs of service. And right now we're just doing grab and go services, which means you can either call and place a hold or do a hold through our online catalog. It's a very restricted space. We have specific protocols in place for quarantining items that are being returned and cleaning them and so on. And this is a very incremental process. Ultimately, we do want to reopen all of our branches, and we will, but it's going to be 1 step at a time and reevaluating as we go. The second thing I want to talk about is summer reading. We are still doing summer reading this year. We launched that on June 8th. It's primarily a virtual program. However, we know that not everybody has internet access. And so one thing that my team has been doing is distributing physical book kits to students in different parts of the city. Now, while my team has concluded these efforts, we worked with a lot of elected officials to make this happen. The education team at NYPL is going to be picking it up with the Department of Education at DOE Meal Hubs. So we're going to be announcing that sometime this week, and you'll see all the different places that these book kits are going to be handed out. And I'll stop there and see if anybody has any questions.
Thank you very much. We're glad to have you open and that you're doing all that great work for kids.
It's our pleasure. Yeah, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about anything else in the future.
Great. Thanks, Amr.
Sure.
Donna Mae DePola. Did we find her, Jesse?
No, she is not there yet. Lisa Wagner is next.
There we go. Lisa, are you here?
I'm here. Yep, I'm here. Lisa Wager, Director of Government Community Relations at the Fashion Institute of Technology, SUNY on 27th Street. I just wanted to check in, and it's so nice to see you, even if it's in little boxes. I have a pretty sunny apartment, but we're really sick of it here. FIT news, we will be having classes for the fall semester. It's going to be a mix of in-person and remote learning. We have about 100 classes that are going to be in person. You know, half of our school is a maker college. People need to make things, and we have a lot of advanced technology that people don't have at home. So those classes will be in person in some form. It's not entirely worked out, possibly half the class for half the semester and the other half for the other semester. Our business and technology school is almost going to be entirely remote. We will have some people in limited capacities in the residence halls. We're all looking forward to getting back to doing the fabulous public education, which leads to terrific creative employment in New York City and throughout the world. And also the Black Students Union about a month ago put up a really powerful and beautiful and very cool mural that they chalked on the outside of the buildings that face 7th Avenue. It's called Chalk That Talk, and it's about civil rights issues and police brutality and a very broad array of civil rights issues. And it's really impressive. So if you can bear to be out in this heat, please walk over, take a look, and have a great rest of the summer.
Thank you, Lisa. Nice to hear your voice. Next suite of speakers, Owen Sweeney, Anita McDonough, and then Sally Davidson.
So Owen is here, I believe, and he's moving.
Right.
How do I get that? Community board four?
Owen, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Can I begin or?
You're in.
You may begin.
Great. Thanks, everybody. My name is Owen Sweeney, and I live in New York. I've been living in New York City for about 15 years. In the last 4 years, I've been living here in Hell's Kitchen. And last year, and I think this is relevant and worth noting, I was the head of HR for Breaking Ground, which is the largest supportive housing network, probably not only in the city, but in the United States. So I've seen up close how to manage housing for the homeless. And it's a cause that I feel very passionate about. And all that being said, I've noticed that there are 3 homeless shelters that have popped up on 36 and 37. And in this particular case, the management doesn't seem to have control over the issues or the tenants. And it appears that the decision might have been a quality of life and a public health decision for the tenants of these shelters. And I would say, without regard to the quality of life, quality of life and public health of the residents and the business owners. Since these poorly managed pop-up facilities appeared, the quality of life has decreased overall. And I might add that the tenants are smoking and drinking in large groups in front of the hotels without masks, without social distancing. And it's something that the governor has shut bars and restaurants down all over the city for the exact same violations. Some of the residents have been harassed, spit on, assaulted, robbed by the tenants. I've been personally asked to give money to a tenant while walking on the street. When I refused, he threatened to spit on me. As the residents no longer feel safe or comfortable going out to eat or shop, this is causing, I think, mental and financial harm to our neighborhood. These are poorly managed facilities, and we have no choice but to shut them down.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Anita McDonough, followed by Sally Davidson, and then Elizabeth Carfioli.
Anita is here.
Great.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi, Anita. We can hear you. Go ahead.
The second to last page of John Blair's and Teneratus's application for Lansdowne Road space mentions 4 previous licenses belonging to the applicants: Club XL, Out Hotel, Bartini, and Rise Bar. The first properties were shut down by the SLA, and Rise was closed 2 years ago when the Department of Buildings issued a June 2018 summons for jamming 600 people in his space, permitted for only 75. These operators, who claim to be good citizens, have historically been two of the worst operators in Hell's Kitchen's history. Yet they speak to you and tell you for the 5th time that they are reformed, and you believe them. John and Ted have always bent the rules, misinterpreted the rules, broke the rules, or ignored the rules. And the community board has proof of everything that I just said. The STIPs mention that the applicant will take all reasonable steps to ensure no queuing or loitering of patrons on the sidewalk. With a crowd, the possible crowd, in front of 599 10th Avenue, half waiting to get in and the other half smoking, there will be a constant crowd despite best efforts to impose reasonable steps to disperse. I want to remind the board that Detective Mike Dugan, head of community affairs at Midtown North, told me that in 2020, Rise Bar received 6 311 violations. All happened in the beginning of the year, the slowest time of the year. Can you just imagine, with a space twice the size, a crowd twice the size on the sidewalk, what the noise is going to be like?
Thank
you
you,
need
Anita.
to do better with the STIPs in managing the crowd on the sidewalk.
Thank you,
need
Anita.
to consider the neighborhood.
Thank you. Next speaker is Sally Davidson, followed by Elizabeth Carfioli and Marie Ems. Is Sally here, Jesse?
I don't believe Sally is here.
Is Elizabeth?
No, I believe Marie Ems is the next.
All right, Marie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Great, thank you. My name is Marie. I've lived in the Piano Factory at 45th and 10th for the past 8 years and within Hell's Kitchen for nearly 15 years now. As a community, we had many issues with Bartini previously in the neighbourhood, which in my opinion operated very much in the style of the proposed Spotlight in their, Spot Club, sorry, in their later years. From my experience within the immediate vicinity of the proposed bar, my neighbours will have issues with noise pollution coming from the Spot bar itself, as we have found living in an older building, coupled with the Spot guests who will congregate, as the previous speaker said, outside the bar. It was the latter that proved to be the biggest issue for us living through the Bartini years. If people are dancing in a space where they have to shout to be heard, when they actually leave that space, they continue to speak at that volume. 10th Avenue, unfortunately, cannot be soundproof. While security guards will either move guests along, so it becomes another blocks issue, or they will actually, as we've seen, tell guests that neighbours have complained. So neighbours end up having to listen to crowds below, being very intimidating and abusive, but hearing that they've actually been asked just to pipe down. I've actually got copies of correspondence for about the past 5 years, or the last 5 years of the Bartini experience from the Piano Factory, really describing how awful it is to live within earshot of such a similar establishment. While I appreciate that Mr. Arenas can commit to being the best neighbour, he won't actually be dancing alone on a Friday night in that bar. If people are out clubbing, drinking and having a good time, how can he ensure that all his guests are equally as respectful during the late night and early morning hours? As an example, I remember one painful summer in 2014 of not being able to fall asleep until 4:30 after the last guest had gone and Bartini had closed up.
15 seconds.
An hour later, my alarm went off because it was the start of my day. That will be the reality, unfortunately, if Spot is given a licence. Respected members of Community Board 4, previously I've spoken in support of folks such as Charlie Marshall during one of his licence hearings, and also for LePiff. There are businesses and bars that are encouraged to be in our neighbourhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, I actually also have Elizabeth with me. Sorry.
I have to move on to the next speaker.
Sorry, Elizabeth Carfioli is next to me.
Okay, but is she speaking on the same item?
Yeah.
Is there new information to be shared besides what you spoke about?
I would like just to add very quickly that I agree with everything that's been said previously. I think that while I would appreciate having a new bar in that space and someone taking over, I think that myself and all of the residents here at the Piano Factory would be adamantly against having the spot there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your brevity. Let's see. Tracy Choi, followed by, I'm guessing it's Alita Lafargue, and then Adrian. No last names. Jesse, is Tracy there?
We have a Tracy. Tracy, you're there?
Got a lot of new hands up as attendees also.
Unmute. Can you hear me? It's Tracy.
We can hear you,
Yes.
Tracy.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy Choi, and I'm a manager at Rise Bar for about a year and a half. I've ran nightclubs for many years, and I want to make clear that Rise Bar operates as a local bar and far from a nightclub, which requires a completely different business model, like much larger capacity, at least 800 to 1,000 plus, you know, promoters, production staff. In some cases, it requires police detail. To go back to Anita's comments about being shut down about 2 years ago for overcrowding, I can't speak on that because that was 2 years ago, but I will bring up last World Pride. We had a police detail car the entire week for World Pride from the beginning until closing, and there were 0 issues, and that's the entire week of World Pride. Rise's capacity is 125 and the spot is 143. Most of our guests are from Hell's Kitchen, and we actually know many of them by name. Most consider Rise as their local Cheers because we do provide a safe environment for our guests, staff members, and our surrounding neighbors. We are proactive on reducing noise from the street, whether it is from smokers, pedestrians walking by, to idling cars. Security staff is very vocal regarding keeping our sidewalk clear and reminding guests to respect our neighbors by keeping noise to a minimum and to exit in an orderly fashion. We also do step in for our local business neighbors and help de-escalate any issues they may have with the help of our security team. Additionally, we sweep up not only our storefronts, but also our neighbor's storefront at the end of each business day. That is the front of
15
Peru.
seconds.
Okay. We have no disorderly conduct verbally or physically, grand larceny, or any type of incidents that calls for police assistance. I hope the board will be in support of the spot, and we will continue to operate in good faith and be a positive impact for the good of the community.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Next speaker, Alita Lafargue.
I don't believe Alita's here. I think Adrian is the next speaker.
Great. Adrian, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everyone. How are you?
Great. You have 2 minutes. Please begin.
Great. Thank you. I just wanted to speak out in opposition of the spot bar. I know that at the time that Lansdowne received their liquor license, I believe it was in 2004, there were not 3 sort of additional schools in the mix. PS 51 has more than doubled in size. Beacon High School is now sitting on the same square block where Lansdowne was. There's also a Success Academy a block and a half away. And I know because of the 200-foot rule, because these are just barely around the corner, that it doesn't really affect the acceptability of applying for the liquor license. But I think that it speaks to the way the landscape of our neighborhood has changed, especially in the past 5 years or so. There's a lot more families, and I just think that, and I can speak as somebody whose apartment faces the north side of 43rd Street and 10th Avenue, that I'm even kept up at night sometimes with customers from Mr. Biggs who are in the street. I do not want to lose any more sleep. I can't afford to. It's just not acceptable for my children to have to either, or anybody else who lives in Manhattan Plaza or across the street or in any of the neighboring buildings. It's just, we do not need, I feel very strongly that we do not need any more like clubbish like bars that are open till 4 a.m. that encourage large crowds. It's just doesn't fit in with the landscape of the neighborhood any longer. And I think we need to be mindful of that. And it just, and all the children walking to school every morning. There's going to be tons of garbage. It's just not really acceptable. And as the vice
7
president of
seconds.
the Plaza Tenants Association, I speak for a voice larger than just my own. We have other tenants who feel the same way, and we've signed petitions.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Charles Cange, followed by Brian Weber and Bruce McCaffer.
Okay. Quickly in the chat, there's Jeffrey. They say Aletta's here, but I don't see her.
I don't see her either. I also want to emphasize to people that we've got 20 plus new hands going up. And so if you're speaking on the spot, I'm going to be limiting those comments to 1 minute. Other topics will continue to be at 2 minutes, but anything on the spot going forward is going to be a 1 minute cap on that. So is Charles around, Jesse?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you
Hi,
hear me?
Charles.
Hi,
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, welcome everybody. Nice to see you. Hope you're staying safe during this difficult time. I'm here talking to you both as a resident of West 49th Street and also a member of the LGBT community. I'm coming to you with a concern I have about an award that I recently received notice of from the federal government. It's a $500,000 award to investigate the long-term impacts of bullying on gay and bisexual men, looking particularly at sexual and mental health outcomes like trauma, which hasn't really been studied very well in the past. As you may know, bullying is not generally, there's really no good programs on bullying in the city. Victims, let's say, in general anyways. So it's really kind of an innovative program. And it's important to get this type of funding from the feds. Lehman College, where I work, has declined this award. They're claiming because their public health program is shutting down in 6 months, they don't have the capacity to host it. There are solutions to this, such as extending programs and working out alternative solutions. And so I don't think this is the best interest of the students, staff, faculty, or the LGBT community, which is very heavily represented in our community board. And that's why I'm also bringing it to you. I feel like this isn't fair to us. So I would like someone to help. I reached out to different elected officials and I haven't really got a satisfactory response. I feel like a lot of people are shrugging their shoulders, and I know we have a lot of distractions right now. I know it's a very difficult time, but I just feel like to kind of let this slide by $500,000 during an economic crisis is really irresponsible. I don't think it's a good way to manage public funds, particularly given that CUNY's public and it's facing a $150 million budget shortfall. So this money would mean a lot to a lot of different people in the community.
15 seconds.
And so I would really like someone to reach out and we can figure out a way to go forward with additional support. Thank you, and thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Charles. And if you want to send a note to our board office, this sounds like something we might be able to look at in one of our committees that relates to this type of stuff. So thank you. Brian Weber, Bruce McCaffer, and then Sean Riley.
Hi all, it's Brian Weber. I'm a public member of CB4 Land Use and Zoning Committee, and I'm also a resident of West 36th Street between 8th and 9th Avenue, and I'm calling with regards to the temporary homeless shelters that have moved into West 36th Street and West 37th Street. I want to echo what Owen Sweeney said at the top of the call, and I also want to add some additional context. The two hotels that have moved into West 36th Street are single men's shelters with a combined population of 515 residents. The additional shelter on West 37th Street is a women's shelter with approximately 300 residents. That is a total of 800 new temporary shelter residents within a 1 block radius, which is 40% of the shelter population that's been relocated to Hell's Kitchen. The density is far too great for this 1 block radius. It's had an immediate negative impact on the health and safety of our residents, of the business owners and the commercial tenants on our street, and it's spread to 8th and 9th Avenue. We've seen a precipitous increase in crime. All of the residents on our street have experienced harassment. There have been a few physical assaults against residents. I've spent the past several afternoons walking the streets with Eric Botcher from Corey Johnson's office and members of DHS, the shelter providers, and What is evident is that we have too many residents, too little space, too little resources, and separate providers.
15
and all
seconds.
all we will be provided with is additional phone numbers, and there's no way out of this until we reduce the density of the shelter population, either removing 2 or more of the shelters from this immediate vicinity. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Let's see. Bruce, followed by Sean Riley, and then David Serrano.
Hi, all. I'm Bruce McCaffrey, former member of CB4. I'm here to speak on behalf of RISE. I've actually spoken on behalf of them before. I enjoy RISE, clean adult-oriented gay bar. I think it's a rare form in this neighborhood. I'd like to speak, actually, I live on 43rd and 10th, so I'm really thrilled about this coming to our block. It's right next door. Next block next door. I want to speak about Lansdowne Road, and I heard a lot of comments. This is a change of operation. So understand, this is an existing 4 a.m. Permit, and Ted's just looking to move into the same space, same size, not increasing the size. As pointed out in the BLP, Ted has DJs, Lansdowne Road had DJs. There was a lot of complaints about drag queens. Drag queens are basically just comedians in a wig. I'm not sure why drag queens are going to cause more noise than football games as entertainment. Lansdowne Road was often full at night. It operated at the same capacity. I don't think there's going to be crowds outside waiting to get into the spot. I'm kind of concerned with some of the complaints about the bar. I'm not sure why a sports bar that hosts loud games is acceptable, but a gay bar that hosts drag artists is not. That is about it. The Spot and Lansdowne Road both have very professional security, always kept the smokers and groups outside small and under control, but they still made a lot of noise.
Bruce.
Yep, thanks.
Appreciate it. Sean Riley, David Serrano, and then Daniel Kelly.
Great. Can folks hear me okay?
Yes, Sean, go ahead.
Great. So hi, my name is Sean Riley. I'm a researcher for Service Employees International Union Local 32 BJ. We represent many service workers, including more than 3,300 who either live or work here in Community Board 4. For the last year and a half, we've supported Chipotle workers in New York City struggling to better their working conditions. Chipotle is currently seeking community approval for a liquor license at 885 10th Ave. In June, I testified before the BLP committee opposing this application, and I'd just like to share a little bit of that testimony with the full board tonight. The fast food industry disproportionately serves and employs underage youth. Chipotle appears to match these trends. The company targets teenagers with their marketing and was recently found to be the 3rd favorite restaurant brand amongst teenagers. Unlike the rest of the fast food industry, Chipotle sells beer and liquor in various forms. Although they hold far more liquor licenses than any other fast food company in New York City, over 80 in total, Chipotle can operate perfectly fine without alcohol. In New Jersey, for instance, all their stores are dry. It is illegal in New York for minors under 18 to serve or handle alcohol. In January, based on information provided to us by Chipotle employees, 32BJ filed complaints with the state liquor authority alleging that managers at 4 different Chipotle locations in Manhattan knowingly had minors as young as 16 mixing drinks and serving beer and liquor at their restaurants. This isn't the only law workers say Chipotle has broken. Workers across the city have reported violations of New York City's paid sick law and Fair Workweek law, claims which the city has either settled with Chipotle or is still investigating. Over the last year, we brought these concerns to Brooklyn CB2, Queens CB4, and Manhattan CB12. All of those boards recommended against new liquor licenses Chipotle requested in their districts. Teodora, a Chipotle worker, testified alongside me in June about her concerns that Chipotle is not. So I'll just skip ahead. At the June BLP meeting, the committee voted to recommend against an SLA license for Chipotle, which is resolution 3 tonight. The committee also made the decision to go one step further and draft a letter to Chipotle CEO Brian Niccol expressing the committee's intent to oppose any new applications in CB4.
Thank you, John.
That's resolution 2. I just want to thank the BLP committee for their decision and encourage the full board to vote with them on resolutions 2 and 3. Thank you.
Thank you. David Serrano, Daniel Kelly, Aviva Wheeler.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is David Serrano. I live on 46th and 10th, and I have lived here since 2010. I am in favor of the spot opening up. I am a regular at Rise Bar, and I love Rise Bar. It's definitely an older, more sophisticated crowd. It's not a rowdy bar, and I'm pretty sure the spot's going to be very similar to that. I also think that in this time right now, when we're dealing with so much blight that's happening in the city, because people are literally leaving the city in droves right now, that we need to be as friendly as possible to businesses, especially businesses that have proven, like Rise Bar has, that they can operate like responsibly. Also, after last meeting, when I was also here in support of the spot, my friend and I walked her home right past where the spot is, and there was literally the only thing open right now is the bodega on one corner and Mimi on the other. Everything else is empty. There was a mattress right in front of where the spot is, and there were homeless people camping out right there. There was trash all around. I'm definitely in favor. It can only get better than what it is now.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Daniel Kelly, Aviva Wheeler, followed by Marisa Radanti.
Yeah, hi, I'm Daniel Kelly. I live in Manhattan Plaza. I've lived in the 9th Avenue building. I also have lived in the 10th Avenue building, resident here for 14 years and in the neighborhood for 22 years. I want to reiterate what everyone's talking about safety. I think the underlying issue that we're missing is how much safer it is when a block is lit up, especially a bar when I walk home at night and bars are lit up or doormen are outside. And let's just be honest, the whole neighborhood is outside right now and is going to continue to be outside for quite some time. As far as rowdy bars, I don't think of Rise Bar as a rowdy bar. I could tell you bars that I know are rowdy, but that is not one of them. I tended to be a more fun, low-key place, which is why I like to go there. I will tell you, as of this week, 3 bars, 3 queer spaces are closing and announced in the neighborhood. And I'm really shocked that people do not want that block to be lit up. If anything, this will bring safety to the area, get the homeless out. And I will tell you that I helped to get letters, and many people that I got letters from have small little children who live in my building. So there are people definitely in favor who live in Manhattan Plaza, and the Manhattan Plaza board, it's not a co-op board. It does not speak for everyone, and no one's ever asked me my opinion once on how I feel or ever given me a letter.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next speaker, Aviva Wheeler, followed by Marisa Radanti, and then David Beatty.
Hi, I'm Aviva Wheeler. I also spoke at the last meeting, and I want to echo, I think everybody sort of touched on the points that I wanted to make, but in particular, the safety of the neighborhood. I live on 43rd Street between 9th and 10th Avenue. As David mentioned, you know, we walk the neighborhood frequently, that block. I pass that spot daily. During the day and in the evening, there are people camped out over there along my entire street as well. I just moved here from Chelsea, which is a similar neighborhood in terms of residential and commercial and entertainment and all of that. You're safer on the street when there's a place that's open, has security, and there are people around. I would feel safer with, you know, the patrons of the restaurant than the people that are currently wandering around. So I'm in total favor of this place opening up.
Thank you, Aviva. Appreciate it. Marisa Radanti, followed by David Beatty and LaToya LeFleur.
Hi, I'm Marisa Radanti. I'm the district leader. I'm also president emeritus for the Manhattan Plaza Tenants Association, which by law is the duly constituted voice of the tenants. Now, I'm so sorry that the young gentleman didn't go to a meeting to be heard on this very important issue, but the fact of the matter is, over the years, this community board has taken the Manhattan Plaza Tenant Association's word that they represent the tenants, and they do by law. There are 800 apartments right near the Spot Bar. There is no evidence that the homeless problem is going to disappear because one bar opens up, if it even does in time. We have recently gotten beat cops on the streets through the efforts of the Hell's Kitchen Neighborhood Action Committee. And Spot Bar, the owners have a very bad record, and the people that are getting letters are not from Manhattan Plaza or the neighborhood. They are an army that has been hired by the operators to try to beef up their case. We have a record of doing hundreds of letters on our own. If we wanted this bar, we would have done it.
Thank you very much. David Beatty, LaToya LeFleur, Brett Rubin. David, are you with us? How about Latoya?
They were both-
Yes, Latoya here.
Hi, Latoya. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. I had an opportunity to speak at the last meeting, and as I said then, I have a unique perspective. With Rise Bar's help, I have raised over, and my team has raised over $25,000 that has gone to nonprofit charities that help LGBTQ homeless youth. And our nonprofit, Gotham Cheer, we're very lucky to have a partner in Rise. Ted and his team are extremely giving of their space, their staff, their time. So my perspective is more from a community perspective, a perspective of a business being like present in the community and really helping to raise awareness and funds. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Latoya. David, sorry about that. You're up.
I don't know what happened. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, I came here, well, two things. As far as the homeless goes, and just want to make a quick note. Something happened today that really surprised me. I went to Drain Reed between 43rd and 44th on 9th Avenue. I witnessed a gentleman, a homeless gentleman, walking into the establishment, filling up this paper bag with all kinds of food, and walking out without paying for it. And I go to the tenant, the lady at the front desk, and said, "Why didn't you do anything?" He said, "We're not allowed to. The cops don't come anyhow, and management told us not to do anything, just let them take the food and leave." And he actually filled up his shopping bag with food. And I confronted the guy at the front. I said, "Are you going to pay for this?" He said, "No." He says, "The manager knows me. I come here every day." And this is a homeless person which basically goes to Drain Reed. Go to Drain Reed. I was shocked. And I said, "Well, why don't you call the police?" They want to call the police. Anyhow, that's just something I wanted to talk about. All these homeless shelters going up in the area, they're not managed. Somebody's doing something wrong. And I don't know who it is, but it's really starting to destroy the neighborhood that I've been in for 30 years. The other thing I want to talk about is the new spot bar. I'm totally in favor of the spot bar. I don't know this Melissa, across the street, in this Manhattan Plaza. She said by law she's in charge of this, in charge of that. There's no laws. I don't know of any law in New York City that gives her any right to talk for other residents in Hell's Kitchen. That building is only one building with tenants. Most of the tenants are over 60, 70 years old. They don't go out anyhow. So to get such a voting block, and I don't know where the voting block's coming from, but they're not.
15 seconds.
I'm just in favor of the bar because it's going to light up that block. John Blair at Rise is an LGBT. I'm totally in favor of a gay bar in the area. And as far as
Thank you, David. Thank you.
Pigs is closed. They have been
Thank you,
closed.
David.
And so,
thank you. Next speaker is Brett Rubin, followed by Timothy Guest and David Stewart.
Okay. Hi, I'm Brett. I live on 10th Avenue near the Spot Bar. I'm a frequent customer of Rise Bar, and I can say with full confidence that it's easily the cleanest, most well-run bar I've been to in NYC. It's a place that I take my parents. Additionally, there are a number of LGBT bars in Hell's Kitchen that have had to close because of COVID. Therapy, Vodka Soda, Barrage, 9th Avenue have all announced they're closing for good, and there are rumors of at least 3 more. These aren't just businesses, they're jobs for people in our communities. And at the last full board meeting, when they were trying to get the spot at the location next door, the board repeatedly said they were good operators, but they needed to find a location that was previously licensed. They took your words to heart and found the perfect location.
15 seconds.
Now is the time to approve the spot and help restore Hell's Kitchen. They'll make the block safer and provide jobs to those in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Timothy Guest, followed by David Stewart, and then John Mandel. Timothy, are you with us?
Yeah, sorry. Hello,
Great, go ahead.
My name's Timothy. I live above Rise on I guess when facing the building on the left side, above the bar area. I'm here to talk about the noise outside. I'm in support of the spot bar. They've had the outdoor seating this whole entire time. I have no complaints. I don't hear anything. Unfortunately, it's raining outside right now, or I would bring you to my window to show you that there's no noise for you guys to hear personally yourself. I also want to talk quickly about the other bars in the area. They are busy, packed, loud, noisy on the street. You've seen it on 51st Street. You've seen it all around there. And there's nothing around here. So I'm just here to say that if you're worried about the noise, they're going to take care of the noise. There won't be noise. I don't hear
15
noise.
seconds.
And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Next speaker, David Stewart. Sorry, I just lost my spot. David Stewart, followed by John Mandel and Christopher Victor.
Hey everybody, hi, thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak. I've been a resident of the neighborhood for about 25 years and a community leader for about a decade. And I really appreciate hearing all the perspectives. So I just wanted to give one of the perspective on the spot bar. So I think one of the concerns that I'm hearing from the community is that the spot bar will have an outsized impact on the landscape of the neighborhood. At the BLP meeting, I believe the attorney for the spot bar submitted a petition that was signed by dozens, maybe hundreds of people who apparently not only lived outside of Hell's Kitchens, many apparently lived outside of Manhattan. So Lansdowne Road was a quiet local pub that had an exemplary operational record.
15 seconds.
And one of the clear things that a petition like this tells me is that even the owners understand that Spot Bar is going to have an outsized impact on the community. So I submitted a letter to the BLP. I hope you guys will read it. It goes into a little more detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, John Mandel, followed by Christopher Victor and Owen Sweeney. John, are you with us? How about Christopher?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, Christopher, go ahead.
Hi there. I'm also here to talk about the spot. I have a different kind of perspective. I'm fairly new to Hell's Kitchen as well as New York altogether. I came to New York as an aspiring dancer, and as many of you have come to New York to find your dream career as well. And I'd just like to say the management, I've just been very thankful to work for Tracy, Teddy, and John as being one of my first managers and for one of my first jobs to make money in New York City. So that I can continue to work and live here. They're incredibly responsible and strict when need to be. And with my time at Rise so far, we've never really had to deal with any drama. And all this talk of drama years ago has never surfaced ever. I'm not sure if you've seen the building of the previous bar, Lansdowne, but I went there. It's a single level building, so there'd be no upstairs neighbor in the building itself. And they've also spent over $1,500 on soundproofing Rise Bar to begin with. And the managers are always proactive with noise control. We've always had the sweetest security guard.
Thank you, Christopher.
Yeah, so I am in support of.
Thank you. Next speaker is Owen Sweeney, followed by Thomas Lapre.
Sorry, Christopher. John Mandel I just put John Mandel in, and Owen Sweeney actually already spoke at the public session.
Thank you. Sorry, that hand has gone up multiple times, so I had added it. Thanks for clarifying, Jesse. John, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Hey, John Mandel, 400 block of West 51st Street between 9th and 10th. I just wanted to say that the open restaurants plan has been overall promising for our street, from having like a couple hundred people on our street to smaller gatherings. I just want to note there's been a related problem, and we could really use the help of the community board and our local officials to kind of, put a little pressure for law enforcement to come together and visit the block a little more often. We've had gatherings just come to 51st Street, I think because people are so used to it now being kind of the place to go as opposed to any of the parallel streets. So people have been bringing portable sound systems, stereos, and playing music on their car to like really late hours of the night. And like, I don't want to blame any specific restaurant or bar, but contacting 301 and 911 has not helped. And I've spoken to a lot of neighbors about the same issue. I know Councilmember Constantinides brought a lot of attention to the issue in Astoria, and there was a lot of attention about how big those parties were going. And it really helped bring the SLA over and a lot more law enforcement attention to that area. And so I know Carl from the Speaker's office is out of town, but I'd love to do something with the neighborhood as well as the community board and the Speaker's office to maybe do a walkthrough to see just kind of some of the related problems that are still sort of manifesting, because we could really use some help in that area. So thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Next speaker is Thomas Lapre, and then Xavier Ramirez and Darren Major. Is Thomas with us?
Yeah, he's coming on now.
Okay.
Sorry, do you hear me here?
Yes, go right ahead.
All right, sorry for the delay. Yeah, I'm a resident on 36th, right next to 8th Avenue. I just want to talk quickly about the shelters on 36th and 37th and echo what Owen Sweeney and Brian Weber said about this. This is, you know, it's a huge amount of people. It's had a dramatic, immediate transformation on the neighborhood. Residents are afraid to leave their buildings, you know, not only during the nighttime, but during the daytime. And it's everything you can imagine. The residents in my building, I'm at 241 West 36th. We've been physically threatened. I've had people in my building be sexually assaulted, open drug dealing, right out the front door, open heroin use. It's not an aberration. It's, you know, it's daily shit. My daughter came home one night to find, you know, blood all over the sidewalk. Turns out it was a slashing.
15 seconds.
People won't go to the restaurants on 9th Avenue because they're afraid to go. These contracts need to be canceled now. It's the neighborhood can't handle the influx. And Jeffrey LeFrancois, you're running this meeting really well. I gotta say, it's like an iron fist, and it's progressing well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And thank you for your comments this evening. Next speaker is Xavier Ramirez, followed by Darren Major and Faye Argentine. Xavier, are you with us?
Yep.
Great, go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. Has Hell's Kitchen resident here for about 4 years, soon to be a resident of 54th and 10th, speaking out in favor of the spot. I'd like to basically echo everyone's statement in favor of the management there at Rise. And the only thing I will add in addition to that is throughout this pandemic and quarantine and bars opening and shutting down, I've been to as many of them as I can to support businesses in the area. And I will say something I noticed and what I came here today to say is that Rise has been the only one that I've noticed definitively has been following all of the rules and all of the rule changes that happen on a daily basis. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you in support of the spot.
Thank you, Xavier. Next speaker is Darren Major, followed by Faye Argentine and Theodore Arenas.
Hello, y'all. This is Darren Major. Got Joyce, serving as outreach director for the New York Gay Football League, and we've been in partnership with Rise since day one, even beyond. And I have nothing but the strongest support for the decision to open this new spot. A lot of people are mentioning community and family. That's what Rise does. I think my peer said with Gotham Cheer, Rise has helped us raise over $35,000 for homeless LGBT youth, Athlete Ally, New York coat drives, and Trinity Place shelters. But the larger piece, as a Black gay man going into Hell's Kitchen, it's great to go into a bar where you see diversity, you feel safe, you feel supported. And I realize that security does that not just for Rise, but for anyone passing by. If security sees someone in need of distress, they actively jump in and assist. Strongly encouraging our communities more than just stroller families. It also includes gay couples as well as their children who will be going to those wonderful schools you mentioned earlier. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Darren. Just so you know, folks, the last speaker that I'll be acknowledging this evening, because hands just keep going up repeatedly, is Artistum Cacklin. After that, I will not be adding any more names to the list for public speakers. Our next speaker is going to be Faye Argentine, followed by Theodore Arenas, and then Alan Azarkin. Faye, are you with us? How about Theodore Arenas?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go right ahead.
I think everything cut out. I'm the applicant. I was wondering if I could get 2 minutes to speak.
It's on a topic I've committed 1 minute to right now. So if it's on the spot, that's what we're doing for everybody.
Okay. I just want to make a point that I want to first thank the BLP committee and the hundreds of Hell's Kitchen that actually supported us. We had 140 residents from Manhattan Plaza who supported us as well. I wanted to take the 2 minutes to address some of the issues that were raised by the residents. First, my past involvement with Bartini over the last 11 years. I want to let people know that I was the reason why I closed, and I reported the business to the SLA and got the license canceled. In short, I was 1/3 owner that was pushed out of the business. I was in a litigation with my partners that prevented me from managing the business. So they had someone running it with no experience manage the venue with no respect to the community. Concerned about liability and having my name stuck on the license, I reported what was going on to the SLA and had it canceled. So some of these issues that people are talking about that happened in 2014 and 13, I wasn't even there. I left in 2011. Some of the other conditions that people were worried about is the sound outside. First off, I'd like to say Rise Bar has only had 5 noise complaints in 3.5 years. 33 out of 40 tenants that live above Rise Bar support the Rise application, and 2 living directly above. In terms of noise outside, we are having the appropriately security guards, bartenders certified to make sure that they're overseeing people are not drunk. And I'm giving you my direct number.
We appreciate your comments. We're going to move on to the next speaker. Thank you. Alan Azarkin.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Justin Kell. Hi, Alan, go ahead.
Hi, this is Alan Azarkian. I'm an architect at Building Violation Services, and I truly want to put my support behind Theodore. He's been a pleasure to work with in the last couple of years, trying to make everything legal and the most safest for the health, safety, and welfare of the public at Rise Bar. And I look forward to working with him on the spot. I mean, a lot of our discussions is about going up and beyond even just the minimum code requirements of making sure not only is it quiet and peaceful and the public is protected, but making sure everyone is safe and with the limited issues with the neighborhood and the community. I think he's one of the most upstanding individuals I've worked with in the hospitality industry. So I do want to put our entire office's support behind him and his venture. He's been a pleasure to work with.
15 seconds.
Yes, and he's an utmost standing citizen that would do right by the community in that area, beyond just keeping it safe and protected for the community.
Thank you, Alan.
You're
Next
welcome.
speaker is Justin Keller, followed by Kathleen Treat and Guy Crowell. Justin, are you with us? Kathleen, are you? I see Kathleen.
Kathleen, you need to turn off either Martin's volume or yours, just because you're going to get feedback if you're.
I don't know how to do that.
All right, I think you've done it
good
already.
now.
So you're good.
Okay.
No, let's see what happened, Kathleen.
Jesse, can you mute everyone and then just unmute that one speaker? Would that work?
Yeah. Give me 1 second.
Let's see. Should we try for Guy?
Yeah, let me move on to Guy and we'll get back to Kathleen.
Okay. Also, folks, just to clarify, continue seeing new hands going up. Is Guy with us, Jesse?
Guy should be with you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go right ahead.
Oh, hello, my name is Guy Kroll. My wife and I live in Manhattan Plaza. I just want to say that I spoke at the last meeting. Recently, I think it was on Monday, somebody in the building had asked us to sign some kind of a petition. Had nothing to do with the spot bar. It was about some past issue at Bartini or something. And the owners, I asked the person if they had ever been to Bartini, and they didn't even know where it was. I asked them if they knew where Rise Bar was, no idea where it was. I asked them if they knew who Ted Arenas was. They said, no, they never met him. They were just told to get signatures by a group of people that are just anti-gay bar in the neighborhood. I've been to the Rise Bar with my wife. I was there for 2 fundraisers. I just can't tell you, it's nicer than it was in, it's going to be a much better place than Lansdowne Road, which we already went to before it closed down. But we have...
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Next up is Xavier. Don't have a last name there, but Xavier, followed by Michael Guardino and Alita Lafargue. Alita, we found you. Xavier, are you with us?
He was.
How about Michael? Is this, we could call this Zoom roulette, I guess. And then we'll go to Alita.
All right, I'm moving over Alita now.
Great.
Hi.
Hi, Alita, we hear you. Go ahead.
Great. I'm the president of the Manhattan Plaza Tenants Association. That's over 3,500 residents. So, you know, 800 units in our building are across the street from the proposed location of the spot. Keeping that in mind, our residents have directed me to speak for them against the proposal. The owners have shown an inability to control their patrons as they wait to enter or when they come out to smoke at the previous establishments, and have demonstrated that they have no plan to control their crowd at this one either. They have sent people from outside our neighborhood to gather petitions from our tenants describing their program as including poetry readings, which is misleading at best. No matter what the description of the operators, if it looks like a nightclub, it's a nightclub. We do not wish to begin installing nightclubs on 10th Avenue.
15 seconds.
Also, the reputation of the operators as evidenced by their track record. We are not confident that we would be able to maintain the tone of our block if they are given this space. We would hope that the concerns of the residents most immediately affected would take priority over several blocks away in other neighborhoods.
Next speaker is Amy Fuselman. So apologies for my butchering this evening. Ann Miller and Ellen Perlstein. Amy, are you with us?
Yeah, they're coming over now.
Great.
Hi, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Amy.
Hi, I'm just want to take a second to speak in support of the other people who've commented on the situation on 36th Street, where I've been a resident since 2000. I'm raising 3 kids on that block, and I can't really overemphasize the difference in the quality of life since the situation has come with the influx of people to the neighborhood. It's really it can't be supportive with the resources that we have now. I mean, our sort of default setting now is that we don't take a left out our door, and it's painful to just normalize that behavior for my kids, that we just go right rather than left. I hope that we can find a way out of that situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Ann Miller, followed by Ellen Perlstein and Rashawn James.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. I did write an extensive letter, and hopefully you were able to read it. I'm echoing Owen, Brian, Thomas, and Amy. I've lived on 36th Street. I've managed buildings on 36th Street. And I'm very upset about what's happening and the fact that the police and 911 are not dealing with the open drug use despite the phone calls. Because I manage buildings in the neighborhood, I get flooded with emails of what's happening, sexual assault, threatening of life. Some are doctors, they're moving out of the neighborhood. We worked really hard. I've lived here since 2002 to clean up the neighborhood, and to have doctors who dealt with COVID on the front lines leaving our neighborhood because they feel threatened walking their dog is crazy to me.
15 seconds.
We need to do something. We need to do something now. We need to get the police to actually take the open drug use and get it out of the neighborhood. We need someone to actually patrol the neighborhood and get the homeless, the ones that are not doing well there, out of the neighborhood.
Thank you, Ann. Ellen Perlstein, followed by Rashawn James and Will Schwartz. Ellen, are you with us?
Here I am.
Great, go ahead, Ellen.
Can you hear me now?
Quite an echo.
There it is.
But
Okay, hi.
there you go.
This is Ellen Pearlstein. I'm here with my father, Philip Pearlstein. We live in the building with with Amy. And 36th Street has become a terrible place. I think that moving over 800 people, homeless people, into 2 blocks overnight was an ill-conceived plan from the start, with no plan for security. I just need to say, just from the bottom of my heart, it has become horrible here. It is dangerous. It is horrible. I would like to remind everybody, the majority of homeless people have mental illness and they are potentially unstable at any moment. I am afraid to go outside. I'm afraid to walk my dog. I'm afraid to let my teenage son walk the dog. I'm afraid to let my 96-year-old father leave the building at all. And I'm afraid my husband is going to get into a fight with somebody. This was an ill-conceived notion from the start. We need security. We need the contracts canceled immediately. It is unsafe and untenable to live like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Just so folks know, we are taking we have a letter on this topic this evening during the business session of the meeting, so people know that as well. Rashawn James, followed by Will Schwartz and Donald Bernstein. Rashawn, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Hey, so I'm speaking in favor of the spot. I am a resident of Manhattan Plaza, and I was also a very, very, very hardcore patron of Lansdowne Road. And I would be very excited to have a gay bar in that space after Lansdowne has left us. But I also wanted to speak about being a Manhattan Plaza resident and debunk the idea that the board speaks for all members who live here and all tenants who live here. That may have been true 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, but we have a new crop of people who live here who are not inundated with the things that people who are older than us believe that anyone who has said I speak for all tenants at Manhattan Plaza is a person who has the voice of me. Person does not speak for me and will never speak for me. And unless you hear my voice, which you are hearing right now, I don't believe that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Jeffrey, I'm going to jump in here. I'm echoing. I don't know who has me on. I'm going to jump in for 1 second here. Manhattan Plaza has a tenants association that is elected by the residents of the building. It follows the laws that they are required to follow because of the subsidies and the housing laws that they're under. There is a duly constituted tenants association. They are authorized to speak for the tenants. Tenants can disagree with the tenants association, but the tenants association does speak officially on behalf of the building. Sorry about that, Jeffrey.
That's okay. Thank you for the clarification. Will Schwartz, followed by Donald Bernstein. Will,
hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
yes,
go right ahead.
I'm here. Hi, I just wanted to, thanks for giving me some time. I just wanted to reiterate the state of crisis that exists on 36th Street. Just a couple personal anecdotes. I've taken to carry around a mag light with me. Mind you, I live right next door to a police station. The police have thrown their hands up and said there's nothing we can do. Our neighborhood has been given over to addicts and vagrants. I get followed to the store every time I go to shop. Our community, the people who moved here, didn't move here thinking they were moving to Greenwich, Connecticut. This is not a situation where we can't handle the realities of living in New York. Honestly, I've lived here my whole life and I've never seen a neighborhood destroyed overnight the way that my block has been destroyed. It is unsafe, and I say that as a fairly large man, and I can't imagine what it's like for the people in my building, how unsafe they may feel if I feel unsafe. Please do something, please.
Thank you, Will. Donald Bernstein, and then a couple of folks who we called but weren't present somehow back then during this virtual meeting. I'm gonna go back to Faye and Michael. Donald, are you with us?
He is here.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you, everyone. Donald Bernstein, I'm the attorney for the spot. I want to first thank the BLP committee for recommending approval of this application. They proposed stipulations, restrictions. We agreed to all of them. I do want to speak on the petitions because some comments were made about where they were from. We submitted a total of 759 signatures. These are local people. 420 of those are south of 48th Street in Hell's Kitchen. 329 are above 49th Street. 137 petition signatures are from Manhattan Plaza. In addition to that, we've obtained 8 letters independently from residents of Manhattan Plaza. 33 of the 40 residential tenants that live in the Rise Bar building are in support of this, including the 2 residents who live on the 2nd floor above Rise Bar. That's extraordinary testament to the fact that they operate well. We originally applied for a building at 601 10th. The BLP committee was not very excited about that. They asked us to come back and find space that had a license or was licensed. We took their advice. We did that. We're coming back for Lansdowne space that's been licensed for 15 years, and we look forward to your support.
Thank you very much. Michael Giordino, Faye Argentine, and our last speaker will be Artisum Coughlin, whose last name I just butchered, so I apologize for that. Michael, are you here?
They're all coming over now, Jeffrey.
Okay. I saw them disappearing, so I wondered if they wanted to cede their time. Michael, you're up.
My name is Michael Rubin. I'm also a resident of say that I would love to see the spotlight.
Michael, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
No.
Hello?
Very, very distant. We can barely hear you. So if you can fix your mic in the next two seconds or so, otherwise you can put your comments in the chat.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Can we bring Faye over?
Faye should be over.
Faye, are you with us?
Nope, she got bounced back for some reason. Hold on.
Faye? Okay. I am not hearing from anybody else. All hands are down. And so with that, I'm going to give Kathleen one more try if we don't get too big of an echo. Ms. Treat.
Hello, I'm so sorry, something with the connection. I want to say, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you very much for your time. My name is Artem, and I'm a resident of Hell's Kitchen. I'd like to speak in favor of Rise Bar and Tenants. I was passing by not a long time ago by this place, and it's actually a really nice and quiet spot. I want to tell you that also add value to our community by hiring people that live in the neighborhood. I talked to Ted Arenas yesterday, and he told me that they got the homophobic people living in the Manhattan Plaza, and they don't want gay bar in our neighbors. And they got 140 people from the Manhattan Plaza who support gay bar in the neighbors, and I think it's really good for our community. I'd like to join with to everything what was said before about this, about the Rise Bar and all the bars was operated by Ted Arenas.
15 seconds.
I think it's going to be a really good opportunity for our neighbors, and I want to tell that Ted Arenas created a really nice bar. It's not loud, and it's they do everything to keep everyone quiet and do the streets safer.
Thank you very much. Our last and final speaker, if we can get her without an echo, is going to be Kathleen Treat.
He's right about that. I don't like it that he's right, but he is.
Can you hear me, Jeffrey?
I can, without an echo.
Marvelous, marvelous. How are you?
Good. Go right ahead.
Spot is not Rise. This is a bridge and tunnel crowd. If you knew that a consortium of reactionary homophobes wanted to open a club near you, would you try to stop them? Of course you would. That's just what so many Hell's Kitchen residents are trying to do with Spot, which again is not Rise. There is ample evidence on public record of these gentlemen's blatant scofflaw attitude. They will not abide by stipulations. Repeat, they will not abide by STIPs. And in any case, who will enforce those STIPs? Why would you permit that? There are decent, law-abiding operators to compete for that space. Our neighborhood deserves that consideration
15
from
seconds.
our community board. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. And with that, Mr. Chair, I declare our public session closed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair. I am going to now turn to, we have two elected officials with us, and I'm going to give them the floor next in the order they showed up, which means Assemblymember Richard Godfrey, you're up first. But you're on mute, sir.
Okay, no more. Okay, thank you. First of all, yesterday we submitted testimony on the Empire Station issue, and I just want to thank Board 4 and Board 5 for helping us frame those issues. And I think we're all in agreement on what needs to be happening with the scoping. On the homeless in the hotels situation, we've been hearing a lot about it. Seems to be a very bad situation. We hear that there are 2,000 hotel residents that have been moved into the district, and I don't think it can sustain that. And we look forward to working with Board 4, with our fellow elected officials, with the city, to try to clear up this situation. Something's really got to be done. You know, a related point is that part of the reason we have so much trouble in this city with housing and behavior that stems from people with mental problems that are not getting assistance and a whole list of other things is that for a couple of decades, New York has been operating on an austerity budget, and we've got to break that. And I'm not suggesting that people who live in this community, the vast majority, I'm not suggesting our taxes are too low, they're too high. But there are a lot of New Yorkers with really huge gargantuan wealth who are undertaxed. And because of that, our city suffers as a result, whether you're talking healthcare, education, housing, transportation. We've got to remedy that. And I've been part of a large group of legislators who have been fighting to get taxes on ultra high wealth in New York increased. Last thing I want to say, the Assembly Health Committee, which I chair, is going to be having public hearings in August on the COVID epidemic and its effect on nursing homes and adult homes and home care, and on our hospitals. If you are interested in getting details about the hearing or in testifying, contact my office. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dick. We appreciate your brevity. I want to make a comment before I give the floor to Gail. I'm going to say right now that there are comments in the chat that are starting to border on inappropriate, and if it continues, we're going to shut down the chat function. Now, the floor belongs to our beloved Manhattan Borough President, Gail Brewer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I want to follow up 51st Street to talk to John Mandel. I have been there once, and I'll be glad to go back with the community board and other electeds. I was there when it was a problem, and glad to work with you. And I think John has a positive attitude about it, and we'll work on it. Number two, regarding the Penn Station and what we call the GPP, which is the way in which the governor does the ULIP. It's not a ULIP, it's a state mandated task force, and we will be making our comments before August 20th. I want to say thank you to Board 4 and Board 5 because you had wonderful, wonderful hearings on this topic. It's really, really important because it's like the center of our city in many, many ways. So I look forward to working with you on that. I want the people on 36th and 37th Street, we agree. I know your chair has been bringing this up constantly. Obviously, we're trying to get rid of the kiosks in the area, but that's only a small part of this issue. You should know that other parts of Manhattan are having the same darn problem, because these, in my opinion, these nonprofits are not doing their job, not to mention too many people. So we are going to be listing for Department of Homeless Services a whole bunch of situations, and Owen Sweeney, I'd be glad to meet with you, but I am very, very aware of this situation. The small business, I thought it was great that you had such a good discussion today, and we will be listening further about the specifics. I think generally, I know we've been up and down on 9th Avenue. I've been to many, many avenues looking at the outdoor cafes. And when these restaurants, I have to say, many of them are doing the right thing in terms of outdoor. So we look forward to continuing to work on this. I know you are sick of census, but August 11th, people are going to knock on doors in terms of census, people who are hired to get you to fill it out. And I hope you do it before then. We are really not doing well. I got to be honest with you. 420,000 New Yorkers have left. So those are hard to chase. And for those of us who are here, we need to fill out the census. I'm not going to say more, except if you want us to come with an iPad and you have a group of people you want to work with to fill out the census on your block, we are glad to do that, because that's the level in which we're operating. We just did one in Harlem. We're doing one in Soho, and we'd be glad to work with you because people have got to fill it out. Garbage, it's terrible. No Sunday pickup for litter baskets, as you know, and there's a 63% cut in weekday service, and there's no more organic. So this is not a problem we want. I know that the city council would have loved to keep sanitation. I can tell you on the organics, because we had it, composting, now it's gone, in terms of pickup, with an NYU group and others, there's a whole year-long study on organics, and hopefully we can bring it back. So if community board members or the public is interested in working with us, please let us know, because I think we have to study how we can bring it back effectively. Affordable housing, we know that there's been cuts in the budget. You know the issues as well as I do. So we are actually going to put together a task force. We've been talking to everybody who builds, to banks and so on. Even though this discussion is an endless one, Board 4 has an amazing history of understanding affordable housing, perhaps more than any other board. And so we're going to try one more time to list, at least for the Borough of Manhattan, what an affordable housing program should look like. I want to just say, in terms of Black Lives Matter, there's lots to discuss, but we did do a mural that I was part of on Foley Square, Center Street between Reed and Worth. And if you have a chance to see it, it's really gorgeous. Department of Cultural Affairs worked with us. We hired 3 young, awesome African-American artists. And we worked with a group out of the South Bronx and East Harlem, all paid, to put together something that is for the history books in terms of the quality. So if you have a chance to go see it, it's pretty extraordinary. And Black Lives Matter, Greater New York, also worked with us. I am concerned about the schools. I know that's not directly your issue, but I don't like this on, off, daycare, not clear, virtual. I have been talking to a lot. I'm going to actually try to call every school in the borough of Manhattan. I spent quite a bit of time with some high schools today who are figuring out. They basically said, we're going to be flexible. These are schools that are less traditional. And they said, you know, if a child hasn't learned in the past, is in temporary housing, is overcrowded and wants to come in 5 days a week, we're going to work that out. Now, some parents don't want to go in at all. That's fine. But we have to be flexible. These kids are not learning, in my opinion. 36% of the kids of the 178,000 going to summer school have not opened their device. So I know it's not the #1 issue, but if we could figure out open space for these schools, you have a lot in District 4, anything is needed. Our newsletter is fabulous. I think everybody gets it, but if there are people who are listening who don't, just know it's really a fabulous newsletter. It's weekly, used to be daily, but it's still fabulous. And thank you very much. I know that you have a lot. As you know, the ULIP timetable is now going to be opening up again with the City Planning Commission. And again, we'll be working together on all those many, many issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Borough President. I'm going to stay with the elected officials reps now. just to keep this moving. Next, first up is going to be Eric Botcher, the Chief of Staff for Council Speaker Corey Johnson.
Hi, everyone. Hope all is well during this very tough time. It's a very tough time for the city and for the community. I'll start with a couple pieces of good news. Therefore, the budget was really tough, but Corey was able to allocate $5 million in capital funding for NYCHA, Elliott, Chelsea, and Fulton houses. So I think that was a really great thing. We were able to allocate $450,000 to renovate Hell's Kitchen Park, which was great. And then also $150,000 for PS 111 to repair new closets and shelving in the classroom there, and a few other things. So although it was a very difficult budget, we were able to do some really important stuff. So I'm very happy about that. Our efforts to help mitigate the food insecurity that the community is going through are continuing. We've been working with many of you on this call. I want to give a shout out to Aleda Lafarge, the Manhattan Plaza Tenant Association president, and Guy Crowell and others, because Manhattan Plaza has really been helping us with our food bags. And then to Community Board 4, Lowell Kern helped get a sizable contribution from the Hudson Yards Hell's Kitchen bid. And we've been purchasing food from Trader Joe's and distributing it at public housing and others. So I want to thank you all for that. By far, the most difficult issue that we've been working on, and the most difficult issue that I've had to work on in my 5 years with the speaker, has been the issue of homelessness. And this epidemic has just really laid bare so many of the issues with homelessness, with mental health. There's, in our community, we've got the issue with the hotels that I'll talk about in a minute. But there's the closure of the subways and the libraries and other places that street homeless people spend their time. That's really forced them out into the community for us to see. There's the population of Rikers, which, you know, Rikers for many years has been serving as de facto housing for people with mental illness. So we're really being forced to see right in front of our eyes a lot of problems that were there for a long time. And we've always struggled with these issues during the summer, but now it's just more acute than ever. And then you have the fact that many parts of town where people would panhandle for a living are no longer populated with people, all the tourists that are gone. So we have people coming to neighborhoods where there's people. So we've had a lot of issue with panhandling, and particularly at the restaurants where people are sitting outside, which is an amazing thing. Restaurant Row is an amazing thing that we pushed for very early on to make it one of the first. And so we've been doing walkthroughs to all the site visits to all the businesses with Breaking Ground and homeless outreach providers. We had a call yesterday with a lot of nonprofits in the neighborhood to really challenge all of us to how we can come together and help with this issue. And the hotel program, we all recognize that where people were staying in congregate sites, where people are sleeping in big rooms together in bunk beds and cots and so on, that's no longer safe for people to sleep in, and that we have hundreds of thousands of empty hotel rooms, and it makes sense to use those to safely house people during this time. But it has to be done competently, and they have to be cited appropriately. And many of these are neither. And we've been working very closely with many of you on here and DHS and others to try to get a handle on some of these operators that are not doing a good job. We have some that are doing a good job, like on 57th and 9th. It's not perfect, but BVSJ at that site, at the Walton, we haven't gotten complaints about that in weeks. And we recognize that 95% of the folks in these hotels are just trying to survive. But you do have a percentage of people who are inappropriately housed and really aren't up for this hotel living. So we have to work on getting these providers in line and then de-densifying these neighborhoods where there's too many on one block. We had a meeting today on 36 with Brian Weber, who lives on the block, and Christine Bertay, who lives a couple blocks away, and the owners of Tavola, and all the operators of these hotels. And it was very clear to us who was doing a good job and who wasn't. So this is going to be, it's a really big challenge. We've got to get it right, and we're working very hard on that. It's been occupying the majority of our time, and I want to thank everyone on here who's been working with us on that, and to all the residents on 36th Street who reached out. We'd love to be in touch with each of you to work through this, because it's going to be a very difficult time. We know that we'll come out of this crisis as a city, but in the meantime, we can't let things slide here locally. We have to do everything we can to get a handle on this. So I really want to thank everyone for their partnership in this.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. Next up, from Congressman Jerry Nadler's office, Haley Burson.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to keep it quick tonight. I just wanted to go over some of the things that the Congressman has been working on. Today, Congressman Nadler spoke on the House floor in support of the No Ban Act. This act, H.R. 2214, seeks to undo some of the harmful implications of the Trump administration's Muslim ban. One of the major issues with this ban was that it was depriving refugees and lawful permanent residents from the right to counsel upon being detained in American airports. And I know that Jerry actually went to JFK to see the chaos firsthand and to understand really what it looked like. So this act is trying to protect these people's rights so that they could have attorneys with them and be able to contact their family members during these inspections. Another thing worth noting that the Congressman has successfully done is the George Floyd Policing Act, which Jerry helped lead. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is one of the most sweeping pieces of policing reform legislation to ever be enacted into law. The act effectively bans violent policing practices and institutes systems of accountability, such as banning chokeholds and no-knock warrants, reforming qualified immunity, and ensuring that violent police officers can't simply move to another jurisdiction after being fired for bad behavior. The Congressman is really open and would love to hear your guys' insight, so please call our office whenever at 212-367-7350. If anyone has any questions or just wants to vent about what's going on in the neighborhood, we are always available to listen, and I'll put my information in the chat. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Haley. Luke Wolf from Controller Scott Stringer's office.
Hi, everybody. Luke Wolf from the Comptroller's office. I'm going to start by mentioning an upcoming event we're having. We're hosting a town hall on Monday the 27th at 6 p.m. With State Senator Brad Hoylman, Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal, as well as Councilmember Carlene Rivera. I just dropped the link in the chat. You do need to register to RSVP, and then you will receive a Zoom link. Translation will be available in Spanish, Chinese, as well as American Sign Language. So I hope to see you all there. It's a chance to speak to your elected officials and ask them questions and kind of hear some of the stuff that they're working on. Two other quick things I want to mention, some of the work our office is doing. The first is on the economic side. We did an analysis of the payroll protection program and how that was rolled out in the city. And what we found was that if New York City was a state, we'd be 49th out of 50th in terms of the amount of businesses that were able to access and receive funds from the program. In Manhattan in particular, only 52% of employer-based businesses received it, and those numbers are lower for our MWBEs across the city and in Manhattan. So we need to make sure that we continue to get federal support and make sure that our businesses can access it, so that some of the businesses that have already are struggling right now are able to stay afloat and regain their footing going forward. The second thing is on opening schools going into the fall, which I think some of the work we're doing dovetails well with the letter the committee forward tonight. So we sent a letter to the mayor about his plan of school reopening, and we have a number of concerns. The 4 specific concerns we raised were: 1, on expanding childcare access for families. We know that's something that's necessary to make this plan work. Number 2, making sure there's clear expectations and communication around standards for remote learning, with a focus on having live synchronous instruction. Number 3, what's the plan to increase staffing to make sure this plan is actually possible? And 4, clear guidance about healthcare and really access to nurses for schools and the school community. So we'll let you all know as soon as we hear more about the mayor's plan, and would appreciate any feedback you all have about how that's going to get rolled out over the next coming weeks and months.
Thank you so much, Luke. We appreciate it. We, as frequent attendees of this meeting, know we rotate the elected officials, letting them speak on alternate months, but I do want to recognize that Maya Burlow from Senator Brad Hoylman's office is here, Erica Overton from Assembly Member Linda Rosenthal's office is here, Philip Ellison from Public Advocate Jumani Williams' office is also with us, and if I missed the reps of any elected officials, I apologize. All right, now we need to adopt the agenda, which I've totally blown already. Do I have a motion to, well, wait, before I even ask for a motion, I've got an amendment to the agenda. Letters 9, and what's the other number? Hang on, I have to find the agenda again. Letter number 9 from the Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee, and number 23 from the Housing, Health, and Human Services Committee, which both address the temporary hotel shelters in our district, will be combined into one letter by the 3 committee chairs. So with that amendment to the agenda, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Move to adopt as amended.
And I heard a second as well. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted. Last month's minutes. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? Not hearing anything, I'll accept a motion to adopt the minutes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The minutes are adopted. I'm now going to hand the floor to our district manager, Jesse Bodine.
Good evening, everybody. I'll try to be as quick as possible. So some of the highlights and events that the district manager and staff attended or on behalf of the board or involved themselves are the following. So we reconvened the Hudson Yards Construction Task Force with the support of the Mayor's Community Affairs Unit and the Speaker Johnson's office. And we had got DOB and DEP to agree on a set of construction hours across for all the major developers in all of Hudson Yards, including Manhattan West. And those, from my understanding, those developers are agreeing to those hours and abiding, which are in congruence with the West 34th Street and Block Association there. As already mentioned previously, the district office has been responding to a very high number of complaints related to the increase in the temporary hotel homeless shelters, and continues to advocate for the Department of Homeless Services to lead a monthly service meeting with all providers and community stakeholders until the temporary shelters are closed. The district office is also receiving a high number of complaints about homeless encampments, and is working with Department of Homeless Services and other stakeholders such as the Port Authority to hope to resolve some of these encampments. And I just want to highlight this is something that I find particularly concerning, which is the result of the NYPD no longer involving themselves in homeless issues. And the thing that really concerns me is that the encampment cleanup is a multi-agency effort. And so what the police were there to do are to support their sister agencies, and they're not doing it. And I find that to be extremely concerning. And that's down to the precinct level. That's not something coming from just simply one PP. What else? Sorry. So regarding the our office space, we'll be happy to know we're all still working remotely, but our office equipment and files have been moved to our new district office. We are still working out the finer details for the licensing agreement with the landlord, but we are going to be at 434 West 33rd Street at some point. And then I had finally, on a lighter note, I had the pleasure of being a guest presenter for two remote learning classes at Avenue School, and that was fun. Regarding August committees, so the only committee that to date will be meeting is the Business License and Permit Committee, and they'll be meeting on on Tuesday, August 11th at 6:30, and that is my report.
Thank you, Jesse. And thank you to Jesse and Nellie and Janine for keeping everything running. Couldn't do it without them. That's for damn sure. Chair's report. All right, I've got a lot tonight, but I'm going to start. As many of you know, after all the new appointees were appointed, Inga Evchenko resigned and became just a public member of the Business Licensing and Permits Committee. Thanks to Gail's office, we have her replacement. Carrie Keenan has joined us as the newest member of Community Board 4, and I'm going to let Carrie say hello to all of you, and please give her a warm welcome. Carrie.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm 25 years in Chelsea on the 200 block of 21st Street, mom of two amazing public school daughters, PPAS and 75 Morton, and super happy to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. We're happy to have you. Carrie is going to be on BLP and Chelsea Land Use, it looks like. The chairs have already been so advised. All right. CB4 Executive Committee members have attended and continue to attend multiple meetings with our elected reps and the Department of Homeless Services regarding all of the temporary hotel shelters in our district, including those on West 36th, West 37th, West 42nd, West 51st, West 57th, and the Aladdin Hotel on West 45th. That work is ongoing. As I mentioned, we've got a letter coming out of two committees on that, and you've all heard firsthand what's going on those blocks. The NYPD on the spur of the moment basically announced that they were going to be holding meetings with the community following the protests that followed the death of George Floyd. I want to single out Christine Berthet, Dolores Rubin, Katie Stokes, and Viren Brombat, who attended the 4 precinct meetings for the precincts that cover Community District 4, the 10th, the 13th, Midtown North, and Midtown South. So thank you to the 4 of you for doing that on very short notice. As we announced back at the June meeting, we formed a social justice working group. That group met every Tuesday in June and July and have drafted both a letter to the mayor and a number of recommendations, which we will be dealing with in the business session. I want to thank Katie Stokes and Viren again for co-chairing that working group most effectively. I think they did a great job. There are a lot of things in those recommendations that we are going to pursue going further, one of which may be keeping that working group intact to address public safety issues going forward. The other group we announced at the June meeting was the Balanced Business Task Force, chaired by Bert Lazarin, and that task force is having a small business forum on the future of reopening the city, and that will be next Tuesday, I think, right? Bert, did I get that date right?
Yes.
Tuesday the 28th at 6:30. The registration link is on our website. So thank you again to Bert and the members of that task force. The Port Authority Bus Terminal Working Group got an update with elected officials, and we are looking to have the Port Authority come back to the board in September to present on their current plan. Thank you to Bert and the various committee chairs that make up that working group. Chelsea Land Use and Transportation, held a joint committee meeting and, as I mentioned earlier, provided testimony yesterday regarding the Empire Station Complex EIS. There was a letter about that for the business session. Chelsea Land Use continues to meet with Terminal Building and Starrett Lehigh for a possible expansion of the Special West Chelsea District. And then finally, for my report, as you all know, the tow pound has been a pet issue of mine since I was chair of the Waterfront and Parks Committee. There are actually two facilities on Pier 76. There is the tow pound itself, and there is a NYPD repair shop. And we have been authorized to announce that the repair shop will be moving to a former car dealer on 11th Avenue. And that will take place before the end of the year. I think they're targeting October. As with the story with our office space, they are still working with DCAS to get their license agreement done, but that is pretty much a done deal. And we were authorized to announce that the repair shop will be moving off of Pier 76. So that's a partial accomplishment. We still got to get rid of the tow pound and turn that pier over to the Hudson River Park Trust. That is it for the chair's report, and we are going to move to the business session. And first up is the Arts, Culture, Education, and Street Life Committee. Alan or Kit, we have a letter to Mayor de Blasio. Who's going to talk about this?
Kit will be taking it.
I'm actually going to kick it off and then pass the baton to Leslie. So the letter is about the forum that we had recently, and it has been a real moving target. As folks know, reopening schools has been a fluid situation, month to month, week to week, in some instances day to day. And so big thank you to Leslie for many, many revisions to this as the situation evolved. There are a couple of initial changes that I'll share, and then I'll let Leslie speak to the letter and entertain questions and potential suggestions. If folks have it in front of you, the first change is on page 2, specifically lines 39 to 40. Used to read, and those students whose diffidence and or inhibition prevent them from fully participating. That's being replaced with, and students who are not engaged by the large group virtual learning experiences being provided to them. The rationale there is to try to shift the framing away from what might be perceived as putting it on a student, that virtual learning isn't working for them yet. And then the second change on page 3, line 4, we're inserting the word likely into the sentence, since a partly in school, partly at home model is likely the scenario for the fall. Rationale there is that the health situation nationwide has evolved, which has made it potentially less likely that schools will be able to open, but also the governor has provided guidance statewide around what the health metrics are for schools to open in the 10 regions, and then what would trigger a region to reclose its schools. So I will stop there and let Leslie take over.
Hi guys, I'm glad we're first. So Kit was saying it's a moving target, to say the least. Every time we would write this big long letter, DOE would come out and give us a little piece of what was to come. They have yet to unveil a full plan, and I think Luke actually touched upon it, and we are going to touch upon a lot of what he said in our letter. We tried to get our arms around really what is this a huge issue. If you break this letter up, we could probably do 1 million letters out of this one letter. But we kind of collaborate on this one. I want to thank Blake, actually, because without Blake, probably this letter wouldn't be half as good as what it was. Anyway, I'm just going to give you some highlights, guys. You see the letter. We wanted to concentrate on a few things. Obviously, what the experts recommended, we touched upon that. But what parents and residents in our district going back to school were most concerned about. And we gave recommendations off both of the experts and what parents and educators told us. One was, which is a big deal for, if everyone knows, is live remote learning and the desperate need for it. The second, the importance of special training for teachers, especially with that live remote learning. The third was communication. We understand this is an immense topic, and a lot of parents, they're different. Some people want to go back to school. Some people don't. Some people are taking their kids out totally and doing just full distance learning. So we know it's a moving target with that, but we would like a little more communication on what the options are. And the fourth, which Luke also mentioned, is one we haven't learned yet from the DOE, is to release a plan to parents and caregivers on what happens if someone in the class, a teacher or a student, contracts COVID or gets sick. What is the plan with the school? What is the plan with the class? And how far reaching will that plan go? We also, you guys see, mentioned 2 particular vulnerable student populations, and we stress the needs for them. And I think the tone of the letter is really, we understand you had no time first go around, you cobbling things together. This time we have about 5 to 6 months to prepare something. So that's what we are trying to actually advocate for. So if anyone has any suggestions, we will take them, and we will go through the 105th number of this letter.
Are there any questions for the ACES committee? Because this seems like it was an entire committee effort.
Yes, absolutely.
Not seeing any hands go up. So Josephine, your hand is up. Did you want to address this?
Yes, it has gone through so many revisions, and thank you, Leslie, for continuing to work on this. I just wanted to, on page 3, I think it's about line 42, when we talk about the need for free Wi-Fi is really important, and I think that could actually be its own paragraph. You could literally just hit the return key and make it its own paragraph, because that doesn't have to do with students in temporary housing. Actually, the kids in the shelter have the free Wi-Fi. It really has to do with needing, universal broadband for every kid in New York City. And, our district, 3 of our 5 elementary schools are Title I schools, which means that we receive federal funding in order to combat the poverty in those schools. So these families are already strapped, have lost jobs, lost income. So this is something that would really help them, and many community boards have already written letters on it. So I just want to make it pop out a little bit more. So if that could just be its own paragraph, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine. Betty? You're on mute still, Betty. I thought you were leaning in to unmute yourself, so that's why I let you go.
Anyway, I think it's a terrific letter, and it shows your thoughtfulness and your thoroughness. I had one thought, having talked to some parents, that there's great concern about parents who need to work and irregular scheduling in terms of, days of the week or hours, or like kids go in the morning, but then they come back home in the afternoon or something like that. And whether or not that's a factor that you came across or not. It's just the effect on the schedule for parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. All right. Anything you want to add in response to those comments, Leslie, quickly?
No, but we'll take both, and we can add the.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm going to move on then to the Business Licensing and Permits Committee. Frank and Bert.
Hi, everyone. We have a number of letters. Hope you read them all. From June and from July. What I'd like to do is I'd like to mention something about Chipotle, and then bundle letters 2 through 5 and 7 and 8.
Well, we're going to vote them the same way we've been doing it. We're going to do it at the end. People will call out if they want to vote against a certain letter. Right. When we do the roll call, they'll say, right, I am voting no on item number 86.
I always forget where I am in terms of what our technology is, that we're doing Zoom. And so we have a different voting process. Thank you for reminding me. The Chipotle letter, we have 2 letters, one to the SLA, and the committee thought we also needed to send a letter to corporate headquarters in Chipotle. Even though Chipotle says Colorado, I found out that they moved to California. 2 years ago. So we're sending it to California. And we also are attaching a letter from our state senator, Brad Hoyleman. And one he wrote in November, talking about all of the Chipotles. And he wrote most recently a letter to the SLA specifically about this one, asking that this one not be licensed. So we're going to be attaching both of those letters to what we send to the SLA. Any questions?
Any questions on the Chipotle letters or anything other than item number 6? Okay, Bert, you want to address the spot?
I will address the letter we've written about the spot.
Yes.
Okay. You've heard tonight many people for, many people against. We heard the same arguments basically at our committee. We were, all of a sudden the word came inundated. We were inundated with petitions from people for and inundated with petitions from people against. Everybody using their favorite phrases in their letters for and their letters against, thinking that would sway us one way or another. It's really difficult. You have to evaluate, where are we? What are we describing here? So the committee had a long discussion among ourselves with the applicant. We changed in our letter of denial with stipulations, unless we change the hours. Our hours, if you notice, 2 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday, 3 a.m. on Thursday, 4 a.m. Friday and Saturday, and Sundays that precede a federal Monday holiday, also Gay Pride and New Year's Eve. We limited any kind of live act to 12, has to end by 12:30. Definitely, that's all during the week, Saturdays, weekends, whatever the day is, 12:30. And we also, as often we do in stipulations, that phone numbers be readily available, both of the security team and of the manager, resident manager of the establishment. And we requested that a representative from the establishment attend all block associations, tenant association meetings when asked to, and maintain communication on a monthly basis. The vote was not a unanimous vote. It was 8 in favor, 3 against. Questions?
Anyone have any questions on this letter? To be clear, it is a standard CB4 deny unless the stipulations are adopted, which means if you are voting for this letter, you are voting for the license to be granted with the stipulations. Jean Daniel, you're on mute, sir.
Sorry, the votes against, the 3 votes against, can you explain what their reasoning was, Bert?
I think they can speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
JD, I'm one of them who voted against it, so we actually had the co-chairs split on this. I find such a disconnect every time these operators come before us. They're probably, 50% of the toughest and most community involved applicants we've had since I've been doing this for 8 years have been, these 2 operators. And I don't know why that is, but there are people come and tell us what great operators they are, what they ought to work, how great they ought to work for, and et cetera. I voted the way I did because I lived through the bad past history with all 3 of the prior establishments from these 2 operators. All three of them, some of them you've heard about: Bartini, Rise Bar, and perhaps most egregiously, the XL nightclub in the basement of the Out Hotel on 9th and 42nd, opened in deeply problematic ways. We took years to try to straighten them out. I don't think XL ever got straightened out, and was ultimately closed down by the police and the SLA as things got out of control. So, I find it hard to weigh, who in the community is more for it and more against it. But my opposition really came to what I've lived through with these operators and trying to work out the problems with their prior operations.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks, Frank. Christine?
Yes, I was also one, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was also one of the people against, and exactly for the same reason as Frank, which is we have had a horrendous history and with these applicants where they have consistently misrepresented one part or another of their operation and or not executed what they were supposed to do. And, whatever they are saying they're going to do at this point, I don't think it is reasonable to trust them, because we've been burned so many times. And I think when we look at the SLA, and the SLA says, having a good operator, it's kind of qualifying the operators. I'm not trying to qualify the operators. I'm trying to say that their operation has been really, really sloppy and people spend hours fighting that, and people couldn't sleep, etc. And that's not good. The second thing I want to point out is that generally I like to rely on the people who live right around an operation. And our goal is to really make sure that those people coexist and cohabit with the operator in a good way. And therefore, if the people right around the corner are not supportive, I would have a tendency to go with them. In this case, we have a lot of confusion about the numbers, etc. But even if I take, the 800 petition and compare it with the 3,200 people at Manhattan Plaza who are represented by their official board, essentially it tells me that 80% of the population in our district is not in favor of this operation being located at that location. And therefore, I felt that we should deny it.
Just a follow-up.
I just want to say something.
Hang on, one person at a time. Bert, go ahead.
I think we get in very dangerous territory when we start comparing numbers. Very dangerous territory. Who lives exactly on this corner or who's on that corner?
When I talk about,
excuse me, I didn't finish.
I'm sorry.
Hang on, Christine. Hang on, Christine. Bert, go ahead.
Okay. Everybody had petitions, okay? So there were 130 something, 7 people signed the petition from Manhattan Plaza in favor. That undeniable, okay? So, but like I said, I don't want to get into the numbers, this many, that many. We come up with our own decision from a whole.
Wait a minute. I'm talking about, I was explaining my decision.
Hang on a second, Christine. Bert, finish what you were saying. I'll come back to you, Christine and JD, but I do not want to relitigate the committee discussion here.
And neither do I. Neither do I. And I just want to say that I think that track record from those first 2 places was horrible. And if they only came in with those 2 places behind them, I would not have voted for this. But the last operation, the current operation that Ted is involved with, Rise, has had very little currently, not saying when it started out. They've changed their security. They fired their old security people. They have a new security team in the last year or year and a half. And so I would go with their current operation. Yes, they have 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, a bad history. Like I said, if they just had that history, I would not have voted for them. But they have a different history from their current operation.
All right, I'm going back to JD quickly.
Yeah, quickly. Always the nut of the situation is if we vote against the letter, the stipulations don't apply. Frank, how do you feel about that?
They do.
I mean, it's always a difficult thing trying to decide.
I'm going to jump in here. What I will say, because I just checked this with Jesse, if we vote this letter down, we can entertain a motion for a straight denial tonight.
Wait a minute.
Wait, but what happens is we vote it down, it goes to the SLA, and none of our stipulations that we had considered can be considered then.
Right, but we can we can take a motion tonight if there is such, a groundswell of support to send a letter to the SLA with recommending a straight denial. So we will still be on record.
Lowell, are you coming?
Yes, Christine.
Yes. So first of all, I want to say that you asked me to justify why I voted against it. So I was not, Bert, making a statement about how the whole committee voted it. I explained my approach. And my approach, yes, I think the numbers are important because if you have 100 people at Manhattan Plaza, you still have 3,200 which are represented by the the tenant association. And even if you have 800 number in the petition, you still have 3,200. So we're still at 80% not in favor. Now let me go back to the letter. We have written many letters or few letters where we have denied outright. And then we went on to say, if the SLA felt that they really wanted to approve it, then we would appreciate the following stipulation. So it's not an either or, we have already done that. And that works.
All right, Blake.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to reiterate what I said the last time about this applicant, since I happen to live pretty close to the Rise Bar and do patronize that establishment a fair amount. I found it to be an operation that is pretty clean inside as well as on the sidewalk. They do always have security personnel, as far as in my experience there. And, as far as I can tell, it seems like a lot of the ordinances, including with the outdoor seating, have been followed. You always see places open way later after rises put their tables away. And, I think it's also important to bring up the last discussion that we had around their last application. I'm just wondering what, it seems like this is exactly a win for us relative to our last discussion, since this is a bar space with a liquor license established there. So I was wondering if, there was any concern about things that were not followed as to what we had recommended last time.
So you're asking if there have been complaints where they're not following the stipulations for Rise Bar?
Yeah, it was more of a question around, we had a discussion around this applicant in the adjacent space last time, and we denied that one because that was not a liquor license space. Whereas it seems like this applicant has now followed our recommendation to get a liquor license space. So I'm wondering what the remaining concerns were, that were not part of that.
Sure. The prior one had two concerns. One, which no longer applies, was that, as you say, the place was not previously licensed. And there was also some unresolved issue about whether it was even properly zoned for a commercial space. But the other half that we heard at that time was that a place like the Spot with its method of operation was unsuitable for this block and would likely change the character of the block. And that is still true. And those arguments were made with respect to the prior location and took up about half the letter we ultimately sent to the SLA.
But does the current location have those same issues? It seemed like this was a bar space before going to be a bar space now?
Yeah, but it's on the same block. And I think the concerns, as I understand it, are, large crowds entering and leaving, hanging out on the sidewalk, maybe lines to get in, and generally a more boisterous crowd, perhaps, than frequented Lansdowne Road. And since the storefronts are side by side, the effect on the street would be the same from both locations.
Thank you, Frank.
Those
Dale?
are just projections.
I'm sorry, Bert.
The boisterous crowds, those are just projections that people have and putting on. There's no evidence.
Well,
that
there
that
can't be because there's no establishment there
moderate.
yet.
And
Yeah,
there probably
okay.
won't be for at least another year.
I think the committee chair should be arguing back on everybody.
All right. Dale has his hand up.
Yeah,
Quickly,
I had a quick
please.
question to those who objected to this. And I had a question about process, but I think that's been answered. The applicant has made a case that he is no longer in an active relationship with his former partners and that he's his own operator now. So I'm wondering, does that speak to track record for those who objected? Is this a different operator, or do you see that as kind of a smokescreen? I'm not sure what to make of that.
So there are two operators. The gentleman who spoke, Ted Arenas, and also John Blair. They're both partners in Rise Bar and would be partners here. Ted was the one who originally ran Bartini. John Blair ran XL and the Out Hotel, and together they run Rise Bar.
Okay, we're not speaking. We're going to do the chat.
So I think you got to look at both of them. They all opened with problems. So Bartini opened with problems when Ted was legitimately in charge. It was really badly soundproofed and all sorts of things. It is also, I think, a factual matter that Ted did leave and the problems continued. The problems in the early years of Rise Bar were when they were both on the scene, and the problems at XL and Out were when the other applicant here, John Blair, was involved.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bert, did you have a final comment since you presented the letter?
No, I think
All right.
everything's been said.
All right, then we're going to move on. We will vote on this the same way we vote on everything else. Moving on to the Chelsea Hell's Kitchen, Clinton Hell's Kitchen. I did it again, JD. Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee. This is the letter regarding the hotel shelters. JD, I'll let you present, and then since we're going to fold this in with the HHHS letter, I'll let Joe and Maria add something if they need to.
Sure. Can I be heard now a little better, Joe? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, you sound good.
This grew out of the the Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee that we had a couple weeks ago. There were a number of concerns raised by committee members in the 30s, 40s, 50s about the homeless being put into the hotels on the blocks. You've heard a lot about that tonight. So we thought we'd write a letter, and we thought we'd try to attach it to some kind of land use issue. Paul Devlin looked into it. It seems a little difficult. One of our main concerns was that these hotels do not become permanent homeless residents without a full discussion with the community board. So we thought we'd draft a letter, a general letter, go to the executive committee, let all the committee chairs, everybody weigh in on it. There was no executive committee, so we thought we'd bring it to the board meeting. It's a bare bones letter because we figured everybody's going to add all kinds of things. Subsequently, there was a Health and Human Services letter on the same topic. So I think it's a good idea to combine them. Maria had wonderful suggestions. I'm sure Joe does as well. And that's what we should do. And I think our main concern was to hold DHS to give them some specific asks that we'd like to have them fulfill. That's it.
Joe, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to note that in combining these letters, we need to update them because from the time we met to now, there have been additional homeless facilities open that were not noted in the letter, so we should list them. As I spoke to Jesse today, there's yet a new hotel on West 40th Street that is now housing homeless singles. That was not disclosed to us at all. So I just want to say that in total, we want to give a full picture. And the last piece is we really want to attach to this letter a series of pictures that have been sent to us by the local restaurants of what they are contending with in these blocks. Because I actually did not believe it. When I was on a Zoom call, I didn't have good connectivity. I went to Tavola, I saw the pictures, and those pictures are 1,000 words. It is unbelievable what is happening directly related to the shelters being poorly managed and the degree of mentally ill, chemically addicted singles that just cannot. In our last meeting with DHS, which was last week, Lowell, right? Last Thursday or something?
Yes.
The providers began to admit that maybe this was not a good idea, that folks with this degree of disability could not be in independent rooms, that they really benefited from a congregate setting. And at the Cache Hotel, we learned that 12 people out of 103 were transferred, and another 15 or 16 were hospitalized since they have moved in. So that to me says it all as a long-term provider of this kind of housing. So we must do something that is very clear and very specific to DHS. The last piece I want to note, in all of our meetings, DHS has lectured us to let us know there is a pandemic and that COVID-19 exists. It has been infuriating to hear that from the Department of Homeless Services, and then they follow by saying how we are, as a community, are not welcoming to homelessness or homeless individuals. It is just unbelievable that they are blind to the fact that community residents have safety concerns, are being followed home, and have serious, serious quality of life issues just to get out of their front door. So we need to do this in a very specific way.
As I think we've mentioned here previously, DHS at these meetings has basically been reading from the same script over and over again. Maria, did you want to add anything? Because I know you've been doing the walks.
Can you hear me? I was having some technical difficulties.
We can hear you now.
Would you like me to share about, the letter, or just give my 2 cents? Because I do have some 2 cents I'd like to add.
Add your 2 cents, please.
My 2 cents is basically this, that yes, this has been a very trying issue. We all know it's related to the pandemic. It's extraordinary situation and circumstances. We've heard that several times. We are all living it, so we all know that. I want to be crystal clear. This is not a NIMBY situation, AKA not in my backyard. If you do feel that way, then maybe this is not the community for you to have. This is not the community with people with that kind of attitude. I want to make clear that we as a committee and a community board understand it's not a crime to be homeless. It's a fact that not all of the residents in each shelter are problematic. We all know that. It's a fact that most people who are homeless are not mentally ill. And we know that we have a moral obligation to help others. And in fact, in this particular community, we have several shelters and we have several buildings of supportive housing. So we're open to helping others. That was my first point. The second point I wanted to mention is that DHS's position seems to be that this is all going to be temporary, and trying to figure out the street homeless versus residents from the shelter. Personally, I understand, I hear that, I get it, but I think it really misses the main point from our local permanent residents. And the third point that I want to make is that this letter that we have, number 23, is basically about density and safety from harassment and violence, and dare I say, common sense. There are some blocks in our community where they are inundated and overwhelmed and overburdened, and it's an untenable situation. And in the letter there, Brian Weber actually emailed Joe and I some amendments and some friendly amendments, which I would like to put into the letter. Am I jumping the gun here mentioning them?
No,
that's fine.
Okay. So Brian Weber mentioned we need to fix the number. There's a paragraph that says how many residents there are on 36th and 37th Street. We have 518. It's really about 800. And if you think about the entire community, as Brian Weber pointed out, that's about 35 to 40% of the entire resident shelter population on those 2 blocks. So and he suggested, and I totally agree, especially after all the meetings we've had, that if we could put in the letter relocating both shelters that are on 36th Street. The other thing he mentioned, the other amendment was fixing a sentence saying that we strongly urge DHS to rectify the issues towards the end of the letter, which I think was a great suggestion. I know I went through that really quickly and I apologize. Basically, the letter is just saying that the solutions should be reduced density, security, and a safety plan for the nonprofit providers, that DHS should be setting guidelines for that, and input and notification to the community board.
All right. Thank you, Maria. I want to add one thing. The photos that Joe referenced, they would fall into the category of not safe for work, just so everyone's aware. Alan, you had a comment or question?
Yes, thank you. In terms of some kind of a solution to reduce the density, could we request from DHS or the city, are there any plans to retrofit the shelters that these folks came out of in order to perhaps move some of these folks back to these other shelters? Is that a viable ask?
Alan, we should, but when we asked specifically what their plans were, the deputy commissioner told us that they will be moved when DHS is ready. Just like that, as if there was nothing planning, thinking, anything. So I think our letter has to be very much, you come up with a solution, you figure out what to do, because our community simply cannot bear this degree of difficulty. And by the way, as Maria noted, majority of people who are homeless are not mentally ill. However, these shelters have a predominance of mentally ill, chemically addicted people in them that were relocated here. That's one of our problems. So we have this density of people with serious social service problems, and the setting they were in, which gave them support, is now totally not there, although some of them, there's lots of staff at the same time. So that's what's so disturbing here. This is a management issue. This is how it was done and how it's being managed now, and they're acting as if they're not in a series of empty or small rooms, and people who are truly profoundly decompensating, meaning they're have a mental illness and they're breaking down, that it doesn't work if you're not being connected with and talked to and engaged with by case management all the time. So that's our problem here. They got taken out of a certain location that was set up to treat and manage the circumstances, and now they're in a hotel and thrown on a block. And I've watched people just, they are physically and mentally decompensating. I have never seen this to such degree. And they're all new people. They're not our street homeless whatsoever.
All right, there's a board member who is not identified who raised their hand. Whoever that was, can you identify yourself?
Maybe it's me, David Warren. I don't know.
No, you're David. You're up next, and I'm going to go to you.
That might be me because I have to keep.
That is you, Tina. Go ahead.
Sorry, I had to keep rebooting myself, so I didn't. This time, I neglected to ID myself. I live on 26th Street. Right behind my bedroom is the BRC, which is a homeless shelter. It houses probably around 350 people, some of which are mentally ill and substance abuse and so forth. And so for a while I was on the advisory committee. DHS would come in and I know we have 600,000 homeless people, but I can't help but believe that DHS is so much a part of the problem, at least in my interaction with them. Okay, so that's one. We can go on for a while. There also has been a pattern of housing homeless folks in at least 2 hotels right nearby. So that has been a pattern. And one of the things to keep in mind is when homeless folks are in hotels, they basically get food vouchers. They're not able to make their own food. In the case with BRC, they make food at the facility and then bring it into the hotel and so forth and so on. So, there is this high level of dysfunction that when something like COVID is humongous as it is, let's face it, this isn't going to go away. And we need to find a way to work with DHS and to call them onto the carpet in terms of their inability to properly manage, the health and well-being of not only their folks, but of folks in the neighborhood. I've been living with this oversaturation for a very long time. And, there is something called the homeless industrial complex. And there are, not to speak badly about nonprofits, but, there are a lot of people making money off of the homeless. And, I think that we need to take a holistic view. This is a big issue that needs to be grappled with, but this is one of the offshoots. The problems that you guys are facing is one of the offshoots that has been consistently happening here, at least in my neighborhood, for a good 8 years or so. So unfortunately, I'm not surprised because we still continue to suffer from these sort of social ills. My overriding concern in having relatives that are homeless and mentally ill and so forth and so on is the long-term care of these individuals. If you're living in hotels, how do you get the social services that you need?
But Tina, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. We have
That's
met.
all.
Yeah, we have met with the providers and we've asked these questions. And the issue isn't so much, well, it is some of the providers. Some of the providers are quite good. Some of them are not, but we've gotten no help from DHS at all. David Warren.
Yes, thank you. This is a very, it's a sad issue, as everyone knows. But Joe mentioned, and he knows the field about the management companies. Is there any way we could get the good managers to take over some of the buildings of the bad managers? Because I think it would be terrible to move these homeless people once again, or these people without homes, I should say, once again, move them again to another area, and the same cycle happens again. Is there any way we can get mental health services, more mental health services, social services? And I think the key would be is to work with the good actors and try to get rid of the bad management companies rather than move. I don't know if that's possible. Also, someone mentioned earlier that the lack of I think you did, Lowell, lack of NYPD backup and cooperation. That's a very serious issue too. How do we get our local, and this is a big thing, how do we get our local precincts to be not forceful, but to be in the background to protect us and have social workers or mental health experts, and only maybe get rid of the really seriously mental ill, and those that have moderate problems, try to work with them and keep them as part of the community. That's just my ideas. I don't know how, I'm not a social worker, so I don't know how viable this is.
You should understand that the majority of these hotels have full complements of staff, caseworkers, security, managers. In one case, there's 60 or 70 staff at the hotel. They are just trying to manage a situation that they're not set up to manage. So even a good operator, like BRC is not horrible. They have a bad track record in some things, but they are a professional. They have not been able to manage it. That's the problem, because their model is set up for this congregate shelter with lots of activities, day rooms, all kinds of things happening. People are in individual rooms. These are all budget hotels. There's no place for people to gather. And in fact, they couldn't because of coronavirus. You put all this together and then DHS just says, oh, it's the same thing. We asked DHS to fund more security for perimeter patrols. We asked for the security to be coordinated among the providers. Basically, it's a social service fact. You don't put a lot of people with a lot of problems of this depth in one location. It creates havoc for them, lack of success, and havoc for our community. That we have to get some of these people relocated, some of these facilities relocated. It's not working.
Joe, I want to keep this moving. I'm going to to the people who have their hand raised, I'm only looking for comments on the letter. We've
Yes,
had these
please.
discussions multiple times at committee hearings, in meetings with DHS. It's all been taken into account. I'm looking for comments on the letter alone, not on the underlying problem. Katie.
I have a question about the logistics. We talked about combining the letters, but are we looking at 9 being the main letter or 23? I can't figure it out. Sorry.
Putting them together into one letter and pulling all the thoughts into one letter.
It'll be a coordinated letter, Katie. I don't think there'll be one with the other pieces added. It will all be folded into one newly written letter.
To clarify though, for everybody that's voting on this, we removed the ability to vote for item 9, and it just states that it's been combined with the latter letter, just because the latter letter is a larger letter. So,
more detail in it,
yeah. But what will come out of this will be a new letter jointly written by JD, Joe, and Maria.
Okay, and then I guess, okay, great. That's really helpful. And then I would just say, obviously as a board member, not only of the Community Board Forward, but also of BRC, that I thank people for acknowledging that there are really good providers out there doing their very best, but this is a really tricky situation. Thanks.
Thank you, Katie. James Wallace.
Very briefly, I understand that we are combining the 2 letters, and it's always hard writing these kinds of letters. There was not a HHS meeting for me to comment, so thank you for giving me the opportunity here.
This is from the prior meeting, James. It was from the meeting before. Jesse held it. When you were there.
I understand. The most recent cycle had a lot of information that occurred from the prior meeting to June, to July. In any case, very simple comment, Lowell. Number one, I would request that it be explicitly made clear, and I think the letters attempt this, but it just needs to be made explicitly clear that DHS is facing a mismanagement nightmare. And there are too many times where we reference the pandemic and try to pit the homeless issue against the pandemic as if they're separate and competing. The bottom line is the pandemic is not an excuse for mismanagement. And in fact, a pandemic is when you need your best management and when you should be doing your very best job. And I just hope that that's explicitly made clear.
You are channeling me, James. I screamed on that a week ago. I said, you have to better manage than this, not worse.
Exactly. And the one other thing, Joe, if you would please include something diplomatic about your comments about DHS taking this really, condescending tone. It's like that's not helpful and it's not necessary. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, James. Kit.
I think this is a bit different than what James closed out with, but I want to emphasize, I think it's important that we try to take the tone that Maria was suggesting. I think if I put on the hat of an objective third party and I read letter 23, my initial reaction is, this feels like not in my backyard. And I don't think that's who we are as a community. I don't think that's who we want to be. And so I just encourage us to definitely, be clear. The concentration is an issue. The management has been totally unacceptable, and the issue needs to be resolved. At the same time, I think we also need to be clear that we are not a community that's unfriendly to folks who are homeless, folks who are struggling with substance abuse. I think it can be a both and.
All right, thanks. I actually think what we could do is say that the mismanagement of DHS and the providers is not only hurting the community, it's hurting their their clients. And if we do it that way, I think we cover that point.
Can I just say something, Lowell?
Go ahead, Maria.
Actually, it's mentioned in the letter. I just didn't mention it when I was speaking about the letter. There is a bullet point, if you've read the letter, about the absence of consideration to shelter residents' social service needs for well beyond the coronavirus protection. So that is something that we considered. But maybe that needs to be highlighted, and I'm writing down the suggestions you guys are mentioning to help enhance the letter. So thank you.
Thank you. Josephine.
So I agree that I thought the tone of the letter number 9 was a little bit better. You know, for example, on letter 23, I can't find it right now, but there's some discussion about how the Skyline Hotel like shut down overnight. Our students were moved. I mean, it was devastating, especially for me, knowing a lot of the families that go to our schools. But then it sort of countered that, you know, these families were pushed out for these males. And it just sounded very anti-homeless male. And, you know, I know that that wasn't the intent, but that's sort of what it sounded like. So I liked the tone of letter number 9 better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hector. Yes, JD, we know you wrote letter number 9.
Yeah. Upon reviewing the letters, hi everybody. Upon reviewing the letters again, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, but there's been no mention, as one of the other panelists had mentioned, of prisoners being released from Rikers Island and put directly into some of these hotels, especially in Midtown.
There are no people. None of these hotels have people released from Rikers to these hotels.
Really?
That is just absolute.
That's been confirmed? Okay.
It's bullshit, and people are freaked out and believing that. Trust me,
Okay.
we've gone through this.
All right.
If it was, we would have included it.
To clarify what Joe was saying.
That's what I want to put it in, trust me.
Just to clarify what Joe was saying, Hector, he's talking about the hotels, the hotels that are listed in our letter. I don't want to start speaking for other situations outside of our district, but in terms of every hotel that's been in our district does not have anybody in that situation. They're all coming from DHS shelters that are from other boroughs relocated here, not from jail.
Okay, great.
And can I just make one other point, just since I'm speaking now, just to clarify something that Joe had spoken to. So we believe that there is another hotel on 40th Street. I did confirm with DHS that it is not theirs. So we have to find out what agency it is and what population it is. So just to clarify that, it is not DHS's, as reported by DHS, it's not theirs.
I'm sorry, I dropped out in the middle of what Hector was saying. So I missed that. I don't know who we're up to next.
We're on to Marty.
All right, thank you, Jeffrey. Marty.
This is a letter to DHS. It's a letter asking DHS to clean up its act. It seems to me we need more help than just DHS. The letter should go to our electeds.
It will.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think we have an issue with that. Paul Devlin.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. I've heard citywide there was a movement of a number of shelter residents to about 10,000 across the city, and about 2,000 have been assigned here. So I think to put it in perspective, in the not in my backyard theme, to say we're carrying 20% of the shifting of residents to our neighborhood, and we're taking a big burden in our neighborhood, so we'd ask for more support from DHS to support us in our support of them.
Okay, thank you, Paul. All right, I don't see any more hands, so we're going to move on. I'm going to the Waterfront Parks and Environment Committee, Jeffrey and Marty.
Yes, there are 4 letters to the Parks Department requesting a replacement of the track at Chelsea Park. One to Hudson River Park Trust regarding the Chelsea Waterside Park redesign, of which we're all very excited about, but provided some important critiques and comments. A letter to the city's Economic Development Corporation and our elected officials regarding a lack of public space and a very, very dangerous situation around the Manhattan Cruise Terminal accessway, including extending an invitation to them at our September WPE meeting. And finally, a letter to NYPD, State DOT, and Parks around the Hudson River Greenway and the placement of the sugar cubes and how they pose overdue danger, an overdue burden and danger on cyclists that need to be permanently addressed.
To be clear, that's not the sugar cubes we use when we're doing zoning, right?
Exactly. Different type of sugar cube. The NYPD cement block is the sugar cube here, not FAR example.
Alan, you got a question? Nope, you're on mute, Alan.
Perhaps a friendly amendment. If we're requesting analysis for these cubes to be moved, changed over to bollards or whatever, could we also request a study on the possible changes or recommended safety concerns on the entrance crossways into the park, where folks have to cross over the bikeway. Sometimes having to scamper across there, wait for a good period of time before someone actually stops. And I think some of the problems that occur on the bikeway is that some very nice and good bike riders do stop for the pedestrians, but then you've got people that just try to run right around them. So perhaps we can study those entrances. Maybe there's something that can be done to provide a safer passage for people coming across with, you know, baby carriages, strollers, dogs, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you on the need for that to be addressed. The issue is they've already moved forward with permanent replacement of the sugar cubes on big parts of the greenway. And so that's what needs to be done across the entire greenway. We need the metal bollards that are in with the cement blocks to be removed. I would take your letter as a separate, I would take your suggestion as a separate letter, not to be folded into this one, because one is moving forward and one we haven't even asked for yet.
So you want to take that up at the next meeting, or you want me to just?
I would be happy to take that up at the next meeting, Alan. It sounds like an issue that we actually want to really drill in on what we're looking for on those intersections, because it's not just about the people and folks using it, it's also about the cars that have to go through at certain points too. And I think that can be tied to a really important ask about making the greenway safer for everybody.
Okay, super. Thank you. Cool.
Thank you. Any other questions on the WPE letters? Moving to transportation, Christine and Dale, letters 14 through 21, please.
Dale, are you taking that or not?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll take, let me just pull them up, sorry. 1 second, okay.
Well, we just want to.
We're gonna bundle, open and find.
Well,
Okay.
we're not bundling because we're bundling everything. So just
Okay.
anything, or do any of these letters need commentary, or are they self-explanatory?
14, I'm just going through 14 through 18. 14 is a letter on traffic enforcement and the traffic and the Bureau itself. 15 is on the barricades around the police precincts in our district. 16 is traffic mitigation strategies north of 14th Street. 17 is a letter to the sanitation department about curbside collection for buildings. And 18 is about bulb outs and how they can, how we can have a more equitable disposition of bulb outs.
All right, 19, 20, 21, anything we need to add there?
No, I just think we need probably a small amendment in 19, where I have received phone calls since our hearing requesting parking, no parking zones in front of residential buildings. So we will ask that in 19.
Okay. Any questions on 14 through 21? All right, hearing none, we're going to go to the joint transportation Chelsea land use letter regarding the Empire Station Complex EIS. Who's taking that one? Paul, that's you?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry, everybody, but because of the timeline on this, it's going to be a long discussion, and I know it's late, so I'll try to go quickly. But as we've discussed, the ESD is proposing a general project plan to override ULURP and current zoning. And the plan is to develop rights on 8 sites and sell those development rights to fund improvements to the train stations and develop Class A office space in a transit-oriented development area. And the proposed project area runs from 6th Avenue, 9th Avenue, 34th to 30th. And this area includes Farley Office Building, Moynihan Train Hall, and Madison Square Garden. But this plan doesn't address any changes to any of those 3 buildings. The 8 development sites of the proposed project surround Penn Station that would be for commercial use. And if all the sites are fully realized as proposed, approximately 20 million square feet of new construction would result. And that's approximately 9 million square feet more than is permitted as of right under the current zoning. So they have that primary area is just those 8 sites and the Moynihan stations and whatnot. But the secondary study area is proposed of approximately a quarter-mile radius, which runs from about mid-block between 10th and 11th to 5th and Park, and then to about 39th to 25th. So keeping in mind that Community Board 4 represents the portion of this proposal just on 8th Avenue, it technically only includes site 1 of the 8 development sites. But we feel it's important for us to discuss the impacts on our community as a whole. And we're now in the stage in the process where ESD is determining the scope of study for the environmental impact study. And they provided us this draft of their scope on July 1st. And they're seeking input on what should be studied in their scoping. And then that would be included in the EIS. And the comments on that draft scope are due by August 20th. So we're under sort of a time crunch. That's why Transportation and Chelsea Land Use held a joint hearing on the 15th. ESD held their meeting last night on the 20th, the night before last on the 20th. We had our hearing tonight. And in addition, Community Board 5 held their hearing on July 13th, which many of us attended to listen to. So from all those hearings, we've gathered this letter that you have in your Dropbox that if some of you have read it, I'd be glad to hear that. But this represents a collection of those points. And there are 3 main themes to the letter. First is we have concerns with baseline issues in the primary scope. Then we address some very specific issues with the proposed scope. And then we address some alternative plans. So in the first section on the baseline problems, we believe that the scope uses an outdated model of study akin to a Robert Moses model of demolition and replacement rather than a holistic and integrated approach. And we also note that there is a focus on having a mega developer run the whole project rather than providing opportunities to minority-owned development companies. So we provide 6 specific areas that should be changed about the primary scope. First, the underlining assumption should include the relocation of Madison Square Garden and through running of trains. Second, the primary study area that I described as the sites should be expanded to that quarter-mile radius of the secondary pros, and the secondary area should be a half-mile radius and should take into consideration the cumulative effects of the Hudson Yards rezoning and the Port Authority bus replacement project. Third point is the floor area ratio proposed should be consistent with special districts in the project area already approved by city planning. Fourth is that residential development with affordable housing must be included in this project. Fifth is that homelessness issues, as we just discussed, are not going away anytime soon. They must be studied and on-site mitigation must be proposed. And sixth, the transportation and public realm plan envisioned in the project must be studied from a pedestrian commuter and micromobility point of view rather than a car-centric perspective. So given these baseline adjustments, and for the second portion of the letter, we then went through and identified 23 specific tasks for the study that need to reflect concerns from our community. And those include traffic, pedestrian use, community facilities, business and residential displacement, open space, historic resources, water and sewage uses, and energy issues, amongst others. As well as questioning, we also question the underlying funding mechanisms for the entire development. And then in the third step, as part of the scoping process, seeker calls for alternative plans to be examined besides the proposed plan and a no action plan. And so we, for the third part of the letter, include recommendations for 5 different alternatives, which include 1, an alternative with decreased FAR, 2, an alternative with the relocation of Madison Square Garden, 3, an alternative with residential components on site 1, 4, an alternative with a connection to Grand Central Station using the new East Side Access or other Amtrak projects, and 5, an alternative implementing non-paired through service of LIRR to Secaucus and New Jersey Transit to Sunnyside. So that was the fastest recap of a 10-page letter that took 3 weeks to get together than I think I could have imagined. And I want to point out, like, this was a joint work team effort. I mean, Betty as co-chair of CLU, Christine and Dale with transportation, and Jeffrey is our liaison to Community Board 5 and to the Advisory Council for ESD. So without those guys, this wouldn't have happened. So. And
Dale.
I said Dale. Dale.
He said Dale. He got Dale.
Well,
I'm keeping tabs.
So there's still some editing tweaks that need to happen in the letter. There's some, headlines that aren't lined up or whatnot, and some typos. So if people have comments other than minor typos and want to talk about substantive issues, I think we're going to work on some master plan paragraph. Jeffrey, Jeffrey and Christine, we had talked about some of that.
Good.
So let's, I don't know who wants to.
Joe and then Bert.
Joe?
Yep. So in the section about the Hudson Yard zoning, we need to include the point I brought up in our first call about it, that in the event that the plan proceeds, that we need to study, they must do a companion action to demap subdistricts B and C, which allow the Hudson Yards development rights to be transferred to that block on 30th, 29th, 7th to 8th. If they don't demap that, they could add that on top of their FAR. So there has to be a companion action. If they proceed in that manner, that demaps that section.
Right.
I have a point on that, though. Apologies, the GPP overrides local zoning, so that zoning would no longer apply.
No longer. They override over zoning so they can go further. But if there's an underlying zoning, it doesn't mean that some nice land use attorney could say it's A plus B. So okay, that's why we should definitely note that up front.
Hey, Joe, could you do us a favor and just what you just said, just type it out in a sentence?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Send it to me so we can include it, because you know it best compared to the rest of us, and I'd have to send it back to you for review anyway.
I had to look up those sub-districts. They're not on our board, but I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. And we'll definitely accept that as friendly amendment.
All right, Bert. Yeah, you got to do the mute thing too, Bert.
Yep. Sorry about that.
Counting how many times I say that tonight.
I think it's a really good letter, well thought through. Many of the perspectives are important that we're bringing to this. There was a piece there that I thought when I read the letter I understood, but then somehow when you just went over it, Paul, I had a different image completely. So I just want to be clear. When we talk about through running trains, direct service from Penn Station to Grand Central, and then you said through, through Long Island access. Well, I had originally thought we're talking about a new deep tunnel from Penn Station to Grand Central. But then when you said Long Island access, I had this image of trains going out to Sunnyside and coming back and around into Grand Central. What are we talking about?
Dale, you want to take this one?
Yeah, the model that's often discussed, and by the way, there are a lot of transportation experts and engineers who advocated for a comprehensive study of through running service. But the model that is most discussed and that was referenced would be, and it would require some normal regularization of electrification and integration of Long Island Railroad. I'm just going to talk about Long Island Railroad and New Jersey Transit for a moment and table Amtrak because I understand it less. Anyway, instead of Penn Station being a terminus for both New Jersey Transit and Long Island Railroad, some or many Long Island Railroad branch services could continue through Penn Station to Secaucus. And conversely, some New Jersey Transit lines could run through Penn Station to Sunnyside. This would require investments. This would require construction and modifications. And it was estimated by one specialist on the order of $5 billion as opposed to the $8 billion that they're throwing at this specific iteration of the project. But it would also not require a lot of additional tracks and the southern expansion as outlined in this. So it seems like it's worthwhile for them to look closely at these two based on where we are today and give us an assessment.
All right, can I jump in here for 1 second? The EIS, 1 second, Bert. Bert, 1 second, Bert. The EIS is specifically about the development sites, not about Penn Station and the trains. So Dale, is this really relevant to the current letter that we're writing?
Yes, because the whole development is predicated on
the need for how much money they need. Okay, got it. I wanted to just clarify that.
Also, they need to condemn the buildings on 30th Street to build the tracks underground and then build on top of it to fund that. So it's all predicated on track expansion.
All right, I just wanted to clarify that. Go ahead, Bert, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, I understand the through running Long Island Railroad to New Jersey Transit back. We've talked about that for years, having trains go from New Brunswick to Stamford. That's not what I was referring to. I was referring to a connection from Penn Station to Grand Central. Because years ago, I don't know how many, there was a talk of a direct tunnel and trains running directly.
That's East Side Access. It's under construction.
No, East Side Access.
As I understand it, that's underway.
Underway.
No, it's not. Excuse me. East Side Access is to bring Long Island Railroad trains into Grand Central. But we're talking about what Paul was talking about, trains from Penn Station to Grand Central. And
Hold on. Let me address this.
One person at a time, please.
Can I
Paul, go ahead. It's your letter. Go ahead.
Since I raised the point that's causing confusion for Bert, let me see if I can clarify. There are two issues that are going on here. One is the through running of the New Jersey Transit and Long Island Railroad, and there is a second issue of the Grand Central connection through the East Side Access. There are two issues, and if you look in the letter on page 10, one of the alternatives we asked for is the study of that East Access. So there are two requests in here. Both of them, you're combining them.
Are trains going to Sunnyside and coming through the 63rd Street Tunnel back down Park Avenue?
Can I?
Christine, can you shed some light on this, Christine?
Thank you, Christine.
Yes. The access to Grand Central is the idea that a lot of people which are going to Penn Station really want to go to Grand Central Station. They want to go to the East Side, right? And we are not suggesting how to do it. We are just saying you have to study an alternative where you find a way to bring all these people not just to Penn Station, but to Grand Central. And we don't know whether they would reuse some Amtrak tracks, or they would reuse the East Side Access, or they would do something else. We don't know. But we are presenting that as a problem that needs to be resolved.
And I'd like to add that one of the big problems is they don't have the master plan set yet for Penn Station. So they don't know what they're going to be doing, and they're putting this development on to fund something that they don't know. So it's sort of a complicated issue that way.
Okay. Thank you all for addressing that. JD had a question. Now I'm going to say it again.
And James has his hand up.
I see James's hand, Christine. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, good job, everybody. Jeffrey and Paul and Betty and Christine. My question is about Madison Square Garden. Paul.
Can't hear you.
Madison Square Garden, back in the past, we've had discussions about that. We don't want it moved over on top of Moynihan Station or wherever they're going to move it. Have any of those issues come up? Or are you aware of those prior discussions about moving it over here?
The issue of moving Madison Square Garden is part of a study of where it would go. That's what we're asking them to do, is to study where and include it in the consideration. Where it goes and that study in and of itself. So we're asking that they study that it get relocated. It's not a study of where it would be relocated to. And Community Board 5 was very emphatic about having to move Madison Square Garden and proposing an alternative for the use of that ground for better access for Penn Station.
All I'm saying is that we had discussions. We don't want it moved over here.
Great.
Agreed.
Agreed.
All right, James Wallace.
Yeah, briefly, 3 points. First point is epic letter of great epicness. Oh my God, what a great job. Second thing is with regard to reference to trees, the trees are referenced in the open spaces section and the pedestrian section. I was just wondering, unless this was structured in a particular way to address EIS, if maybe there could be a sustainability section to sort of bolster the point that we can really lead the way if we're doing this huge redevelopment and make it as sustainable as possible. So I do appreciate the trees are mentioned, but it might be something to consider as a friendly amendment to have a section on sustainability as they're embarking on this. And the last point, you know, putting on my old art hat, you know, it would be nice if someone talked about art, public art. Like if the sooner it's considered, the more likely it is to actually be adopted and brought into being and done in a way that is, you know, not going to offend JD, who just turned his camera off. That's all I have.
Epic suggestions, James.
Thank you.
And in terms of sustainability, there is a lot more in the energy section. I mean, I apologize that I ran through this letter very quickly, but there is some sustainability issues. There is some mention of trees. I think you're right. We don't necessarily mention public art space, but that I could see that falling into an open space category.
We could add that.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
JD has weighed in. Okay. Any other questions on this? Thank you, Paul. Maria and Joe, letter 24.
But you forgot us.
Never.
So this was a very complex matter about a tax exemption in exchange for creating permanent affordable housing. You see there's a lot of items in there that were not filled in. This had to be done very quickly and sent to the city council because they voted on it as part of the budget. And they did approve this. I can honestly say that I've been playing tag with Raju Man, head of city council land use, to find out where it ended up. I know it's been approved, but a lot of our requests, some have been agreed to and some have not been. So that's where we are on it. And it actually preserved a great number of affordable housing units for a 40-year period.
Any questions on the letter? Thank you, Joe. I know how, Marty's got his hand up. Go ahead. Marty, you're on mute. I do want to say while Marty's finding his mute button that I know how much time Joe put in on this one. And it was a bear.
You have somebody else.
Marty, we can't hear you. You're still on mute. All right, Marty gives up. Josephine.
I also appreciate all the work that was put into this, but I do have a couple of concerns, and maybe Joe can answer them for me. The first thing is that this real estate deal does not include any new affordable units. What they're basically doing are buying units that are already deemed affordable, right, because of the cost. They're tenement buildings, where they're located, and they're saying that they're going to keep them affordable for the next 40 years. Meanwhile, there's really no indication. They say that a percentage of the units will go to homeless or formerly homeless families, but they don't say whether they're going to take housing vouchers, which is what formerly homeless or homeless families use. It's actually what a lot of low-income families use, are vouchers, but there's no indication that they take the vouchers. Also, they've done this in the Bronx before. They've bought property, they flip it in a couple of years, they make a lot of money off it, and there's no real evidence that it's done anything to benefit those communities. So we're talking about a 30 million tax exemption when we're in the worst economic crisis since the 70s, and everything's being slashed, and real estate revenue is really the only revenue coming into the city at all. So I'm a little hesitant on this one. I want affordable housing as much as anybody else does, but the reality is that these apartments are already affordable. They meet the 120% AMI for affordable units across the city. So I'm not sure what, the reality of what they're doing really doesn't seem to me to be making a whole lot of a difference.
All right, Joe.
The majority of units are not affordable. There are 29 units that are currently market rate, non-rent stabilized. Those are being returned to rent stabilization, so that's a net gain for us. The units have no income caps on them whatsoever. And in fact, this owner bought this property in order to continually either buy out or vacate rent stabilized tenants and raise the rents. The entire project remains in rent stabilization. And there are 10 units that are at 30% of AMI, specifically for the homeless families at very low income. So it took us a while to figure this out because it was not, I would say this owner's presentation was one of our problems, Lowell. They were not presenting very clearly or fully. And as we got into it clearly, we understood, in fact, that we were actually preserving a total of 196 units, the majority of which are below 80% of AMI.
But are they taking vouchers, housing vouchers?
Yes, they are required by the regulatory agreement to take the vouchers, but there are 10 units who would not even require a voucher. I'm talking rents that were in like 300s or 400 per month.
Okay, because I don't see that in the plan. They didn't put that in there. It's not in the letter, so.
Their regulatory agreement always will require vouchers because, by the way, you are required now by law, you cannot refuse a Section 8 tenant if you're rent stabilized.
They do it all the time.
Right, but the
Right,
law.
I work with the shelters all the time and nobody takes them.
All right, well, whether or not people are enforcing the law is a different issue, Josephine. I hear what you're saying. I'm not questioning that. And Maria's nodding along as well. Anything else on this, Marty? You want to try again?
Yeah, I found the mute button. Thanks. Is this letter one that's gone out already? I didn't understand the introduction to this conversation.
We were constrained by time, Marty, because the city council was acting when it approved the budget. So basically, this draft went to the city council land use division, and they used that as the guide for negotiating on our behalf.
And what about did it go with all the areas that were not filled into the city council?
It actually did, Marty, because we had to write it in a day and a half.
I know you're doing good work, but I tried to read and understand this, and from my dumb mind, I couldn't because of all the blanks.
Marty, I'm with you. This was thrown on us. This was brought to us in the middle of COVID-19 disaster.
I respect your work, Joe. You know that, but you and I've had this conversation a lot of times.
All right, this one was out of our hands, Marty.
Yeah.
Corey's office came to us with this one with no lead time at all.
None.
That may be true.
When I commented earlier about the time I know Joe put in on this, it was very intense over a very short period of time. I understand your concerns, Marty.
I don't even understand the letter.
Okay.
So I don't know what to vote for. I'm voting because I love you guys, not because I understand what I'm voting for.
We'll take it. At 9:30, we'll take it, Marty.
Okay.
If you want to discuss it offline afterwards, I'm happy to. I want to move on. We've got 2 items left, but they're important ones. It's the letter and the report from our social justice working group, Katie and Viren.
Hey guys, so the letter is first, it's number 25. And then the recommendations are next, number 26. I will say that this letter is actually one of the recommendations. So, but we might as well discuss the letter first because it's attached first. And we apologize that it took us a little while to get it to you guys. But the letter is addressed to the mayor and to Speaker Johnson, asking for the creation of a commission that would include a representative from each community board to provide input to our elected leaders about feedback, concerns, and suggestions and best practices about policing in our communities. And we think that it's really important that we have something at that larger level, at the higher level, and with our elected officials, so that it's not just about, at the precinct level. And so we've asked for the creation of this commission that would exist for 6 months to provide feedback. So our ask is the creation of this commission with a representative from each community board. If we all approve this letter tonight, our plan is also to circulate this to other community boards to encourage them to think about asking for the same thing, to get on board about it. And then we also explain, we've added a paragraph in there sort of explaining the work that we did for the last 7 or 8 weeks. Yep, so questions, comments, concerns?
All right, let's move on to the recommendation. Oh, well, hang on, Jeffrey.
And
Leslie, I saw your hand also.
I'll take it after the recommendations. I apologize.
Okay. Leslie?
I'm with Jeffrey. Me too.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Katie, recommendations.
Yes. So let me just get over to the recommendations on my computer. So the recommendation, so the way our task force worked was that we invited everybody to just start throwing out suggestions on any topic to advance this issue. And then we ended up with a really, really long list. And then we said, okay, but now we have to start thinking about, you know, what can we do in the short term and what can be most effective. And we ended up sort of focusing in 3 areas. One is on our board, on Community Board 4. What can we do as a community board sort of internally? And you'll see that there are 3 recommendations there, which we can go through in a second. Next up, we focused on youth and community. And you'll see that there are 4 specific recommendations there. And then the 3rd category was NYPD. And then there are just 4 specific recommendations there. So that's how the task force decided to do it. You'll see in the first group, which is the board-focused recommendations, and I think, Lowell, you had mentioned this earlier, that one of the recommendations simply is that the work of this task force, whether it's a working group or becomes a full board committee, whatever, that the work of this group continue in some way. One of the things that we added, by the way, most recently, is that we agreed just last night as part of our task force that we think it should actually be renamed to the Anti-Racist Working Group to really specifically identify what we're working on. The very first thing we mentioned there is having an anti-racism training program for all of us. And then also share with each other as well as on our website anti-racism resources. And we've already put together an initial list of recommended books, movies, and podcasts. So anyway, just the board-focused ones, the 3 are the anti-racism training proposal that we could participate in voluntarily. The next one is to continue the work of this group. And the 3rd one is to recommend that each of our committees expand explicitly our commitment to actively enhance racial justice. And then it gives some examples of how different committees could do that. So maybe we should get people's feedback on those before we go on to the next ones. Is that right, Lowell? Or should I?
Do the whole thing. I think it'll be faster if we go through it. We take them all at once.
Okay. And then the youth.
Before you go on, just to clarify, it's not a task force. It's actually a working group.
Yeah, that's true.
And we are hoping that it will sort of translate into more consistent working group or a task force or even a committee. And the second thing I just want to quickly point out is that following what happened to George Floyd and the events of the sort of movement that sort of followed that occurrence, thank you all for actually suggesting formation of this group and for actually 20 other people from within the Community Board 4 to have come together and really get this going. So that's actually one of the sort of, biggest impetus that we found that sort of made this happen very quickly. Katie, carry on.
Yeah, no, thanks, Farron. That's very important. You're right. So the 4 suggestions under youth and community focused. The first one, as you can see, is sort of focusing on opportunities in physical space for Black and Brown youth to engage in positive ways with the NYPD. Frankly, specifically, we've heard that the Police Athletic League has some great programs in some other boroughs, and we'd really like to see if we can help replicate that by contacting some of our recreational spaces and maybe even some of the private spaces in our district to see if their gyms and things could be used for the Police Athletic League. Number 2 is to, frankly, replicate what Manhattan Community Board 7 has done and to create a CB4 NYCHA working group. Number 3 is to connect our workforce development organizations with local community groups and businesses to really focus on skills development, internship and employment opportunities for Black and Brown youth. And our last one is to frankly focus on access to capital for businesses that are Black and Latinx owned. So those are the 4 for youth and community focused. And then very lastly, we have the 4 that are NYPD focused. Our first one is that the police precincts be coterminous with the community board districts. And we go into a little more detail there. The next one is to sort of help collaborate with police precincts and community organizations to foster better communication. And we have some specific ideas there. Third is to ask for more training for the NYPD focused on de-escalation and implicit bias. And frankly, specifically for all officers, not just for new hires. And number 4, under NYPD, is to contact the mayor and city council and request that a commission be formed with every community board, to focus on community policing practices. And so that's the letter that was number 25.
All right, I'm going to take comments, but I want to preface this way. This group has been working for 7 or 8 weeks, once a week. We are not going to relitigate the entire subject of social justice right now. If you have specific comments on the recommendations that have come out of this working group, now is the time to raise them, but I don't want to relitigate everything here. I'm going to start with Jeffrey.
Thank you, Lowell. 2 things. One, thank you to you for putting this working group into effect, and Katie and Viren for chairing this. I think this is an excellent start to something that I would support becoming a more, I don't want to say permanent, but part of the board over X amount of time going forward. I think your proposals were smart, sensible, and well thought through, and I look forward to seeing what comes next of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
James.
3 things. Great letter, great start. The first thing I would suggest is workshops on MWBE certification. We could do that outreach, social justice, making sure Black and brown people aren't killed in the street is a nice start, but show me the money. We don't get social justice if you keep people poor and homeless. The second thing, and by the way, that's not directed at you. You guys did a great job. The second thing is developing more of an ownership society rather than a housing society. Really focusing on initiatives to increase the ability, not just to have access to capital to build businesses, but have access to capital to own their own real estate. Yeah. That's all I have. Great start. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Leslie.
Guys, this is wonderful. I know it's a really hard, broad topic to get your hands around, and you could probably go in a million different directions. So I think this is a good start. May I add some friendly amendments just to think about? The CCRB is a really important organization. They are in danger of not getting funded now. I think that the civilian, for civilians to now oversee complaints on police officers, I think is very important. And I think that should be in the letter. If you can add that, that would be great, or at least look upon not pulling funding from it, which is now supposedly the rumor.
I'm sorry, Leslie, just so I can be clear. So you're suggesting we put language in
supporting
continued funding for the CCRB?
Yes, the CCRB, or, I mean, yeah, because that's really where the civilian, that's where people get to, I guess if there's any complaints about any police officer actions, and then it's pretty, it's a mode of transparency. And that's already in effect. We just, I think to support that, I think would be a good thing to advocate for. The second thing is a little bit more, I guess, precinct oriented. So our precinct and all precincts have NCOs, and they also have build your blocks. And I think that they do have avenues where communities, families, children, schools, everything can kind of have a voice and interact with their police officers. And I think if we help strengthen these programs, the NCOs are a great start. I don't know if you know the NCO in your neighborhood, but they give out their personal phone numbers. The same with the Build Your Blocks. They have the Build Your Block meetings. I'm not sure it's monthly, but I think it's maybe 4 times a year, where there's a very healthy interaction. And I think we just need more people to come to those meetings to get face-to-face time with police officers. And I think it would hopefully help a lot of this. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Leslie. JD. No, I'm not going to say it again. The mute button, sir.
So sorry, Lowell. Katie, I only got this letter this morning.
Oh, the updated one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which actually isn't significantly changed from the one a few days ago, but yeah, we apologize for the timing.
There are a number of things that I could support in this letter. The youth thing I think is excellent. There are other things I cannot support. I think the intention is, of course, something we all want, but my feeling is this is a community board. I didn't see anything addressed specifically to us. Is there racism on our community board? Then that's something we should address. I didn't see that. If there's racism in our community, we certainly should address that. But addressing these larger issues is a worthwhile thing. I just don't understand how we are getting into it. I don't understand that. And I'm sorry to say that. What are we supposed to do? The idea about having training on this community board about racism, well, let's have training about bias against LGBTQ. Let's have training about bias towards women. I mean, where does it stop? When do we become pure enough? And I understand, Lowell, you don't want us to discuss any of these little items, so I won't. But unfortunately, without more understanding of the board's role in these larger issues, I can't support this letter. As to having a representative on a larger thing, well, there are 4 precincts. The Hell's Kitchen neighborhood up here with Midtown North seems to work pretty well. We fought with them for 20 years. We're working well now. Any racism or anti-gay that would come up, we would go crazy. We would go nuts. So who's going to represent the community board to represent our many different neighborhoods? We all don't agree. So I don't understand how that works. So unfortunately, I cannot support this. And I wish we had the chance to kind of muddle some of this through.
All right, JD, these are a set of recommendations for the board that we're going to, vote on to see to take forward. These are not carved in stone. This is what we are going to do. These are a set of recommendations. It will be taken up at exec. It will be taken up further with the working group. All right. I hear what you're saying, but this is the first step in the process.
I didn't understand that from the letter.
Well, all right. Well, the letter is one thing. The set of recommendations is just an internal document for us to work. It's a blueprint. Is probably the best way to say it.
It's a working document. It's not a set of sort of fixed agenda items. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, Viren.
Thanks.
I'm saying it's a set of it's a working document, set of recommendations. It's fluid. It's open to input. It come about through a number of sort of much longer list of recommendations. And just to your point, JD, CB4 is not insulated from rest of the city. And folks come in and out of CB4 as well, and they also actually form part of the community. We have schools in the neighborhood where people come and students come and study here. We have NYCHA population. We have streets where people get targeted because of X, Y, and Z types of biases. So we're talking about implicit bias. We're also joining our voice, the community board's voice, with the rest of the city. And that's what this working group is all about. That's what we thought it was. So it's not about pointing fingers at the community itself or the community board, but become part of a larger conversation, because we all agree in this room that we see the implicit bias across every spectrum of life.
Maria wanted to weigh in. Maria appears to be frozen.
Yeah.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
There you are. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Your screen appears to be
Oh,
frozen, but we can
man.
hear you.
All right.
Hang on. We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, I just very briefly, I was going to say that, okay, good. Very briefly, I would just highlight what Viren just said, because that was one of the three things I was going to mention, is just about the fact that it's about implicit bias. I did hear JD mention, is anyone racist here? And if anyone's racist here, we should address that. I agree with him. But I think it's a greater issue than that. People don't walk around saying I'm racist. People don't also walk around saying I have implicit bias, but we know it exists. I have it. Everyone has it, right? And I just want to mention that I also hear you when you talk about the issues of injustice in terms of different groups. You mentioned women, you mentioned, we could include the disabled there, you mentioned the LGBTQ community. Those things are real, those things exist. But the reason for the group that was put together, as Viren mentioned, is about what is happening currently to people of color, particularly Black people. And I needed to share that.
Thank you, Maria. Josephine.
Yes, I definitely thank you, Maria, for that.
I hope I was heard.
You were.
Yes, you were heard, and I was going
I
to
am
say
done.
that, so thank you for starting that. But I also just want to mention that some of these recommendations are definitely community focused, based in CB4. So one of the recommendations is to improve relations between the NYCHA residents and the NYPD by hosting, fairs or games. Hector had talked about several initiatives that the police do in other parts of the city that we can bring here, because that's one of the big issues that we're having, right? The interaction of the police with specifically young Black men and women. So that's something that we can work on in our own backyard. Another thing is, we had gotten a statement about CB4 and what some of the needs were for our community. And one of the large needs was for our youth to have more support in terms of job training. And we have a significant amount of young Black and brown youth who really need jobs and job training. So that is another thing that we could work on with partnerships throughout CB4, these many technology companies. So there's a lot of focus that we're doing specifically related to CB4, while also branching out and trying to work with other community boards and seeing what other folks are doing in the city. Thank you.
And Josephine, I said I supported that. I said I can support that. That's great. That's very specific. It's the other broader things that I haven't been able to digest yet.
And as JD, as Viren said, this is a living, breathing document. It's a blueprint. It's a start. There'll be a lot more discussion about that. I don't see James. Okay, last one. I'm not taking anyone after James.
Thanks, Lowell. JD, you know how much I appreciate your views on things, and sometimes we end up on the opposite sides, but I still love you, brother. I just want to say that as it regards the document, I just read through it again, and I couldn't see anything specifically that you were highlighting except for the training. You use the term purity test. First, I just want to echo what Viren and Maria have already said, but I want to add that they said identify implicit bias training and request that people attend it. So you don't have to go, and it's not required. The community board has been offering like 6 or 7 different kinds of trainings. I don't think I've gone to any of them, and it shows in my performance, obviously. But oh, by the way, I totally agree with you. If there were LGBTQ bias training, feminist bias training, heck, I'll teach a biracial bias training. Like, I would go to all of them, but I don't think there's a reason to oppose it per se. If you choose to vote against this, that's your right. I respect it. But I think this letter indicates that Community Board 4 has a commitment to supporting
You're so good.
Black and brown people of color. And I think they have very specific proposals that are pretty inoffensive. And again, if you don't want to attend the training, that's fine.
Dale, I said I wasn't going to take anyone else. You going to kill me if I cut you off?
Just to clarify, other boards have implemented such trainings, and also the borough president has had a module in anti-racism training.
Yes.
That in development or
it's in development. It's been discussed, and there have been yeah, it's been discussed, and there's a separate conversation going on at Borough Board to expand these kind of concepts across all 12 Manhattan boards. At this point, I'm cutting off the discussion. Maria and Mike, are you ready for a roll call?
Can you all hear me? Please say yes.
Yes.
All right, we're going to here's what we're doing. We are doing we are doing a roll call. They're going to call your name. You're going to say yes on all or yes on all except number 73.
And Mike is going to, I'm sorry, Lowell.
Mike is going to track it and you're calling the names?
No, Mike, I will track. Mike will call out the names. I'm having a delay in my sound. I'm still having technical issues, so I will fill in.
Give me 1 second.
And Mike will call out the names.
All right, I may have the roll call sheet. I may be able to help you here. Hang on.
I can do that, Lowell. Don't worry about it. It's right in front of me.
I have the roll call sheet.
All right.
This is Maria. I have the roll call sheet. I'm ready with my pen. I'm ready.
Mike Noble, the floor is yours.
Okay. Sarah Appleton. Sarah.
Next.
Christine Berthay.
Yes, all except number 6, where I oppose.
Gwen Billig.
Move on.
I'll come back to all of these folks. Leslie.
Yes on everything except for 14, 15, 17. And then what Lowell said about number 6, if we can, I think you said there could be a discussion about another letter.
We have to vote. This is just a roll call right now. Just yes or no.
No on 6 then.
Viren.
Yes on everything, no on 6.
Patricia.
Not here. Next.
Jessica.
Yes on everything.
Dale.
Yes to all.
Judith.
Okay, on 1, president not eligible, and no on number 6.
Martin.
No on 6, yes on everything.
Paul.
Yes on everything.
Tina.
Yes on everything, no on 6.
Pete.
Yes on everything, no on 6.
Brett.
No on 6 and 14. I'm abstaining from 2 and 3. Yes on everything else.
Elzora.
Yes on all except 14, 15, 17, and 6.
Wendy.
Yes to all.
David. Hawaka.
Yes to all except 6.
Frank.
Yes to all except 6, which is a no.
Josephine.
A no on 6, abstain on 24, and yes on everything else.
Carrie Keenan.
Sorry, yes to all, no on 6.
Okay, Lowell.
Yes to all, no on 6.
Blake.
Yes to all.
Bert.
Yes to all.
Christopher.
No on 6, yes to all.
Jeffrey. You with us, Jeffrey?
I am. I don't know. I'm an aye on all. Sorry about that.
Excuse me?
Aye on all, he said.
Oh, good, good. Elizabeth, Betty,
Yes to all except for 6.
Morgan,
Yeah. Yes to all.
Sarah Mills,
No on 6, yes to the rest.
Raksha,
No on 2, 3, and 23, and yes on the rest.
and for myself, yes to all. JD,
Sean Danielle?
Here, I'm so sorry. No on 6, no on 14, no on 15, and no on 17.
Maria,
This is Maria. I'm going to say yes to all and no on 6.
Alan Oster,
Yes to all.
Brad Pascarella,
Abstain on 2 and 3 and 19. Yes to the rest.
okay, Rhonda. Is Rhonda here tonight?
Nope.
Okay. Twee,
Yes on all, no on 6.
oh, very good, thank you. Joe,
Joe, you're on mute.
Yes to all, no on 6.
okay. Sabrina, are you here?
I've not seen her tonight. Nope.
No. Dolores,
No on 15, yes to the rest.
What number no was that, Dolores? I'm sorry.
No on 15, 1-5.
Okay, and yes to the rest. Okay, thank you.
okay. Brian Sokal,
Yes to all.
David Solnick,
Yes to all.
Katie Stokes,
Yes to all.
Kit Tollerson,
Yes to all.
Marty Treat,
No on 6. Yes to all the rest.
thank you. Hector Vasquez,
Yeah, that's no on 6 and no on 15 and yes to all.
okay. Rob Walker,
Yes to all.
James Wallace,
No on 6, yes to the rest.
David Warren,
Nay on 6, yay to the rest.
okay. Leslie Williams,
No on 6, yes to all.
Colin Wright.
Yes to all, please.
Okay, now going back to Gwen Billig,
Did we get Sarah?
Sarah,
I was having trouble with my mute. I'm yes to all.
that's Gwen.
That's Sarah Appleton.
Oh,
Sarah.
sorry, yeah, okay, good. And then Gwen Billig.
Gwen is on, appears to be signed in, but on
Just
mute.
raise your hand, Gwen.
Good, she's not on video.
No, just raise your hand on the participants.
No, she's in. I see her, but she's on mute and apparently has stepped away.
Oh, I got you.
All right, is that everyone?
What about Patricia, Patty?
Not here.
Oh, okay. And then Sabrina?
Not here.
Not here.
Okay. So do you want to know the number for number 6?
We need a count on number 6, please.
We have, okay, so 11 plus 10 plus 5 is 26. 26 no's.
All right, then that's going to fail. That's a majority.
There's a substitute.
All right.
Well,
So, yes, sir.
is there a substitute for that to get our no?
Yes.
for the
Right.
link?
I was going to ask. I was going to give the floor to Frank. Frank, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I think the alternative would be a straight out denial, and then the provision that says if the SLA were to disagree with us, we would ask that the following stipulations be terms of the license. That would be the stipulations that we agreed to with the applicant at the BLP meeting.
Okay, does everyone understand that?
But that's just what failed. What just failed is the vote to approve a license with stipulations.
No.
Right. No, that's
deny.
We voted down a deny unless. Now we are saying deny, but otherwise, it's a slight, Jeffrey, it's a slight variation.
Jeffrey, we've done
The
this before.
variation on a theme, Jeffrey. All it's saying is that, okay, you guys want to give it to them? Put these stipulations in. We don't want to be left out.
I think we just voted to be left out by the position we took on the letter. And
we're introducing a new motion now as a replacement letter.
I guess, is there a second on that motion?
Well, I haven't gotten that far because you interrupted us.
You're right. Sorry.
There was a second
Well,
from James
I'll
Walter.
All right,
I'll
so I
second it.
asked, did everyone understand the motion?
Yes.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say
Wait.
aye.
Wait.
Wait, what, Christine?
Well, I wanted to do an amendment on that letter.
Okay.
Just a suggestion.
Oh.
I think a lot of people were concerned about the 4 o'clock or whatever, and whether we should, change that end hour in that alternate.
Frank, it's your motion. Do you want to accept that as a friendly amendment?
Sure. Christine, would you go to 3 on the weekends or?
It's 4 o'clock on Saturday and Friday.
Clear to me later.
All right, I don't want to renegotiate this. This is what you guys did in committee. There was a straight, Christine made a suggestion, Frank, accept it or deny it.
Let's go with what we agreed to with committee.
Okay.
Okay, now, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no.
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 All right, motion carries by voice vote. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Wait.
What,
Slow
Jesse?
down. Look
at that.
Everybody needs to put into the vote sheet. You guys got the digital vote sheet link. You need to put in what happened into the bottom vote. You have
to add item number 27.
Okay.
Add item number 27. It's the new letter on number 6, and you have to enter that in your vote sheet with everything else because we still need a written record.
Okay.
So you're saying
everyone got that?
Are you going to resend the link?
Jesse, can you resend the link to the digital vote sheet?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Thank you.
Okay, now can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
Jesse?
Second.
Wait a minute. I'm asking Jesse if I can entertain that motion first. Are you done,
This
sir?
This is Maria. Jesse, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Maria.
Quick question. Do I need to know who said no on number 27?
Yes.
It'll come in on the digital sheet.
Well,
That's
we
the
need
point
it
of the
now, Lowell. We need it now for the record.
By voice vote, it passed. We will have the written record, and it will be there. It'll become part of the record. It's the written vote sheets. It passed by voice vote. We are allowed
I'm
to
sorry,
do that under
Lowell.
Robert's rules.
Lowell, hi, this is Twee. I guess what the question is for number 27, do we say the motion is to XYZ? And I say yes. So I think that's the part that people are asking.
All right. Letter 27 is a letter to deny the application. Just add that to the vote sheet, and if you voted yes by voice vote, mark it yes on the sheet. We will have a written record, Michael, because it'll come through on the written vote. We know that it passed by voice vote here, so we are done with our business.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Restuccia?
move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you all for your patience.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Get home safe.
Good night.
That was good, Alan. Bye, everybody. Happy summer.
Have a happy summer.
Bye. Thank you. See ya. Bye-bye.
I'm so glad.
Hey, Jesse, don't forget to send me the link to the meeting now.
In the chat.
Me too, Rob.
I will send you once I get it tonight, Mike.
Thanks. Thank
You
you.
and Maria both.
All right.
If you could send the voting sheet, Jesse, thanks.
Yeah, I just put it into the link. I just put it into the chat, but I will send it out separately.
Thank you, because I'm on the phone.
Got it.
Thanks again. Have a good night.